The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Ooh, a Riesling pour, right?
Oh, and it smells so good, John.
Excellent. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers with Brian Casey today. Sam is on kid assignment as we speak, picking up Althea, and Bart's on special assignment. So let's run this down correctly. Tara Jane Alvey from Own Root Collective.
Oh, yeah.
And Tyler Cofield from Ricci Vineyards, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Shalini.
I'm not a pasta.
How did I do it?
Shalini Shaker.
Brian's on
Shalini Shaker.
Shalini Shaker.
Damn.
From Ottavino Wines, but
Damn.
also, so I'm looking at your Instagram account, and I'm like, are you making wines for a bunch of other people too?
So many. That's my actual job.
Is okay.
Good job.
This Odavino thing.
Is your little
Lost my
side
da- I
hustle?
lost my damn.
and
I lost
you're
my damn
actually-
mind. Yeah.
Okay. So there's like 3 other brands, I think, listed on your, and also 2019 San Francisco Chronicle Winemaker to watch, John. We can throw that in there.
All right.
All
right, there we go.
Already, I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
And this whole show, you know, Tara and I were talking for, I don't know, a month or two about coming back on the show. Tara's a friend of the pod, been on the show before. And then Bailey and I were going to see live music at the Fairmont on a Friday night, and we were getting out of our car, and Tyler was waiting for his car to be brought around. And he was pouring wine in the lobby, and so we just started. I noticed he had a box in his hand, and I know what those boxes are, so I'm like, hey, were you just pouring in the lobby? So we kind of had a conversation, and we were talking about Saint Laurent, but you didn't actually, you poured it all, so you didn't have any.
I had none to share. I felt
So that planted this seed in my brain, and I was like, fucking Saint Laurent, what is this? And I was talking to Bart, and Bart's like, yeah, Dale offered me Saint Laurent like decades ago, said I could just take some to play around with it, and I said no, and he's like, I've been kicking myself since then. And so Bart's said to tell you, if you want to give him a free ton of Saint Laurent, he'll take you up on your offer. He was like, tell Dale I'll take him up on his offer.
I don't want to say that we're mean people per se, but that ship might have sailed at this point.
Totally.
So.
I think, you know, I don't know what year that was, but I'm sure it was right, you know, when after it had first been planted, and they were looking for people to kind of play around with it and see what it would do.
By a large extent, you know, Dale, he's still doing that. Shalini. I nailed her name.
Ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
You know, I think I actually don't remember how you heard about the grape, or, you know, who told you about us, or how that came about. But, you know, you are very much like everybody else that gets Saint Laurent as kind of small producers. Dale, my dad, he's always wants to kind of let people experiment with it, and he likes what people can do with it, whether it's a pet nat or a rosé or a still wine. So it's really cool to see what these people are doing with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How many producers are you selling Saint Laurent to now? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I would have to guess, but it's probably around half a dozen, maybe a few others. You know, there's always people knocking on the door, trying to get some. And last vintage, I think, was the first year. I mean, yields were light, but I think that was the first year where demand outweighed supply. So we're kind of going back in that territory again, where we're having new people reach out to us and say, hey, I'd like to get some. And we're like, I don't know. It's there might not be enough to go around. So.
And that's the cool thing. I'm sorry, Tara. That's what I like. What's going on right now in the wine industry is I love that people are looking for different varietals. When you see people making mission wines again, and you say it's cool that people are actually wanting to do something a little bit different there. And I don't know if part of that is because other grapes have become price prohibitive. Maybe, I don't know how much you guys are selling the Saint Laurent for, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any I don't think there's any kind of secrets that we're trying to hold on to. Like, It's usually around the 2,000 a ton mark, somewhere around there.
Right.
I mean, that might not be exact, but we don't want to be cost prohibitive for small brands that get their hands on it. So
Yeah.
And you're planting a little more, right?
yeah, right now we have about 6 acres under vine, and then we are planning out, I think, if memory serves me right, another 4 acres. So we'll have about 10, maybe even more than that. So.
And just to give people a perspective, if there was Pinot in that same area, Pinot Noir in that same area, it would sell for probably 2 or 3 times that, depending on.
Yeah, I mean, probably not 2 or 3 times that, but definitely more than that.
Yeah.
So, St. Laurent's always been kind of like this passion project. So, my dad, he's really liked how it's turned out. He's happy with how the fruit shows, what people do with it, like I said. So, he's continuing to do it because it's kind of a labor of love for him. He's always been kind of this experimenter in the vineyard. So,
Yeah.
and to that point, we're actually going to be planting this year about a dozen or so new varietals that are kind of on par with St. Laurent, things that a lot of people haven't heard of. Some people,
Do I get the insider track today? Because I did bug. I bugged your sister already.
Yeah, absolutely.
She responds so well to that.
Yeah, my sister, who is not on the podcast, she's the behind the scenes. She's not usually the people person, and she'll probably bite my head off for saying that if she's listening. But yeah, so we have about a dozen new varietals that'll be ready in 2026, 7. And some really cool ones, a Blaufränkisch, a Sertico, which is a Greek grape.
Yum.
We don't know, we're in Carneros, so it's pretty cool out there. We don't know if it's going to ripen well, but we're going to give it a shot. And
Where are you down there?
we're on Ramel Road. If people are familiar with, the Sonoma side of Carneros, right across the way from Dunham. So the winery with all the art on the hills. So.
Well, I'm going to jump in because I'm like, you threw it out there, Brian, that like maybe this is attractive because of the price point, but
Right.
And I will tell you how I figured out that you guys had the only St. Laurent
Yeah.
I'm going to say the United States, where you can get into that other story later. But for me, I said I would never start a brand ever. And I really stuck to it for like a good 15 years. So I just made other people's wine. I worked for other people, and had the joy of just living the stress and the worry and love of winemaking, but not selling wine.
Right.
Because I started in direct to consumer.
Yeah.
And I wanted no part of it.
Yeah.
I have there's enough stuff keeping me up at night, let alone unsold wine. But I lost my damn mind at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, I'm gonna make like a little bit of wine just for fun, and I'll sell it to my friends because they've all been bugging me. Start a brand, we'll like back you. I'm like, I don't want investors. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support, guys. But here, I'll make some wine. Just buy it. And I did that for 1 year, and I was like, well, I have a white, so I guess I better think about a red. And I make Pinot Noir and Chard as my day job, which I love and I'm passionate about. But I'm financially not trying to put my money there. And why would I do that at this point anyway? I have some places and things I'm very passionate about, and I don't want to compete with any of the brands that I make. So I just kind of said, I'm not what you expect as a winemaker. Indian, nobody can see me. Indian American woman, mother from New Jersey.
We'll take some pictures so you can post some
confirmed.
pictures on them.
I mean, that's what you picture when you picture a winemaker, right? Like a brown woman from New Jersey, right?
That's where my mind goes. Absolutely.
I like
Totally
the
where it
background.
goes,
I
right?
like it.
I feel like I'm going to become the new stereotype. So I just was like, let me think about all these other wines that I love, and I do love, Gruner. That's how I decided to start with Gruner. And had visited Austria and traveled with some friends, and knew that Blaufränkisch, Zweigelt, St. Laurent, and really did the strong Google search. Tyler, I did the strong Google search.
Is that how it
Swear to
played
you.
out? Okay.
Oh yeah, and then then I figured it out, and then I managed to get your dad's info, and I bugged him, and I bugged him, and I bugged him,
That's
and I
sometimes
bugged
all,
him more.
Yeah,
and I
all
think
it
he
takes.
gave me fruit to make me shut up, I think. Which is not possible.
What did we pour first, Brian? Because this is
Before we get,
beautiful wine.
how about if we just do a little background so we can, in case people haven't heard the show before or haven't heard the show with Tara, I know we talk about you every once in a while, but Tara, why don't you just talk about Own Root Collective and what it is exactly you do?
Totally. Own Root Collective is my passion project, and we feature other people's passion projects. So it's a wine club that we work exclusively with people's side projects. So people who have day jobs in the wine industry and then feel compelled for whatever insane reason to also make their own wine on the side, and then are like, now I've made the wine, DTC sucks. What do I do with this wine? I don't have time. I have a job. And so then I'm like, oh, let me help out and sell this wine to our customer base, who's really looking to support really small independent projects that are really hands-on. And I mean, small, like, I mean, most of our producers make, a couple hundred cases of something, like 50 cases of this, 50 cases of that. I mean, this is like beyond micro. This is like, infinitesimal production, but always really high quality wine because it's people who are deeply invested in the wine industry and want to produce something that they feel
Or
really
sometimes
excited
not
about.
always have. And I'm sorry to interrupt you,
ahead.
but I bought some. Is it little by little? Or
Yeah.
So I bought some little by little because I saw one of your posts and was like, I love Chenin Blanc.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to buy all 3 of the wines to try them all out.
Yeah.
But it seemed like I don't know if those guys had necessarily another job going on or if
Will
it was
is
just like a little side hustle that they were.
Yeah. Will's the winemaker at Thumbprint up in Healdsburg.
There we go. Okay. See, I didn't even get that deep into it.
Yeah.
So I love finding those wines that you highlight. So that's why I love having you on, because I don't want to drink what you're. I always loved things like when you find the winemaker at Ravenswood, but on the side, Peter Mathis is making his Grenache, who's got a love of Grenache. You kind of really dig into what the people, like what would they do if they had the time and energy to do something.
And what do they really give a
unique.
shit about?
Right. Okay. And I'm just glad we cleared up little by little, because I was like, is it little X little times little? I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Go
You
ahead.
should have Will on sometime.
Totally
he
want
has,
to.
He has his own brand that's by himself, and then this is a joint project. And his partner also is in the wine industry and was the assistant with Kirk Vengi for like a decade. And then when they started Little by Little, he came over, and he's in. I can't remember where he is over here, but he's on the Sonoma side now.
Okay.
Everybody has a passion project going. I mean,
Currently, there's there's a pendulum, right? Like there's times when this isn't as prevalent, and now we're right now in a time where it is really prevalent, and I find that really fascinating because 15 years ago people weren't really allowed to have a side project. It wasn't something that as a winemaker you were allowed to do, right? And the wine industry, this is just my own thought about it, but the wine industry notoriously pays pretty terribly. Yep. And so I think as like incentivizing people to stay on, it was like, it kind of became like a learning project, but also, I can't pay you anymore, but you can make your little project here.
Right.
And at this point, frankly, I think it's become a bit of a liquid resume because it is so hard to find a winemaker job now. We have more people coming in, working in cellars and working on the winemaking side, since we have so many awesome programs across the country for people to get degrees in VIT. There's more people now that are graduating than there are jobs, and so for like to get the full W on your resume is difficult. But if you have your own brand, you can kind of say like, this is what I actually can do.
Right.
So I think there's both of those things happen. So people can make these projects because they usually can crush for free where they work.
Right. And that's
pull
the
glass
real
from where they work.
Sticking point is
those kind of things.
Sharing the costs.
Correct.
So like we've had on some people, Pax Maley has sort of a little incubator program going on over there. We've had Rosalind Reynolds on, and we've had Patrick Capiello.
Yeah.
And then Morgan Twain Peterson is good about that at Bedrock.
He's
too,
incredible.
With Bird Horse. And,
yes.
Allowing people to kind of.
Fela's another one that's
Isn't
been
that where
like
Desire
a real
Lines
incubator
came from
place.
too? Bedrock.
Yep, Cody, and I think it keeps people on
Yes,
too. Like
100%.
if they can continue to make their wines and then work for you, and now you have this highly qualified person that's staying.
You know
on
what
your-
also is really smart, to be frank, it's smart on the owner side as well, because now you have somebody who knows how to file with TTB. You have somebody who knows how to do taxes. Have somebody that knows how to like do all the crappy parts instead of just putting stuff into barrels. Totally. Someone who knows how to run a business more, and that hasn't been something that's traditionally equated with winemaking. Yeah. So it is really great on that side also, but I do see it. It's partially the financial incentive is part of why this is such a thing that's happening right now.
And then exactly what is it you do for these brands that you are showcasing?
So we do 2 winemakers a month that we feature, usually 3 wines per winemaker, and then members have an opportunity to buy the wines through us if they want to, and we offer really subsidized shipping. So it's $20 a case to anywhere in the country.
It's insane.
Which is insane. That's right. I'm crazy. And then during these hot summer months, also super crazy, $40 to anywhere in the country, temperature controlled or whatever the safe shipping solution is, which is also pretty ridiculous.
You're really subsidizing that.
I
aren't you?
heavily subsidize.
I don't think people really understand what
the shipping.
what
No.
a burden it is to a small winery.
Massive.
Shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not only soul crushing, but it is financially crushing.
Correct.
To the point of almost not being sustainable,
Yeah.
as a business.
Yeah.
It's about to like New York or to New Jersey, for example.
Yeah.
To New Jersey for
I
safe
like to call it the
shipping.
motherland.
To the motherland to ship a case of wine in these hot summer months is about $170.
Holy
Yep.
crap.
Correct.
What are you guys going to do when UPS goes on strike?
Well, John,
I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking.
we've been actually in our weekly meetings for the past, I feel like 2 or 3 months, have been talking about that. I mean, luckily or unluckily for us right now, we're not able to ship anything from Texas to New Orleans. I mean, we're shipping cans and boxes, but we're not shipping bottles at all. So
Yeah.
we're hoping by the time it cools down that they'll have figured out whatever it is going on. But
Oh, we have Sam Couturi coming over.
I doubt
Maybe
it.
he's-
Once you
maybe
open
he's
the third
hanging
bottle
out.
of Riesling, Sam will
Yeah,
he'll
he'll
like
hear the-
float
he'll hear the
over
pop.
on a cloud.
Sam.
Okay, so Tyler, let's talk about Ricci Vineyards. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if Bart Hansen was offered this wine, Bart's old as dirt, so he's probably, the vineyard must have been around for a while. How did the whole
Yeah,
Ricci Vineyards get started? And I'm sure you know the whole history.
Yeah, I mean, not every little minute detail like my dad would, but I've heard it countless times at this point. So, Dale Ricci, my dad, he grew up in Sonoma. Multi-generation, just living here in Sonoma, and his family were always ranchers, farmers, mostly in the dairy business, which in Carneros, in the early 1900s, is all it was dairies, grazing land, sheep, hay production. There was really no vineyards to speak of. But my dad, in the early 70s, he had some family land that he wanted to convert into a vineyard. And he went to banks looking for financing to try and get this project underway. And all the banks that he went to basically laughed him out of the room. They're like, "You're crazy. You can't grow grapes in Carneros. It's too cold. Yeah. There's too much fog, too much wind, and nothing's going to be viable. And you're a crazy person." So, he was not going to be told no. So he basically said, well, actually, let me take a step back. He didn't say F you to the banks at first. He did take their money, but not to grow grapes. He decided to grow kiwis.
Okay, and you're going to have to explain this whole thing because Tara was talking about it earlier, but this is so wacky.
And also, just to throw this out here, if Dale were here, this story probably would not be told because he hates talking about kiwis. He loathes kiwis. He doesn't eat kiwis. He doesn't buy kiwis.
Hates people from New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely. All those things. So the bank said, we won't give you a loan to grow wine grapes, but I guess for whatever reason, kiwis were big in the early to mid 70s.
I mean, I grew up here. I'd never heard that before. I've never seen a kiwi growing around here.
Who knows? Maybe he has like more details, but
Yeah.
so he took this bank loan, started growing kiwis. There was some nursery up in near Chico that was growing kiwi vines. I think they grow in a vine form, and I guess he was supposed to get these really mature plants. They ended up being, instead of like 6 feet tall, they were like 6 inches tall, and it was. There was some kind of embezzlement scheme with this nursery, and there was a lot of shady shit going down. And but he took these plants and he planted them, and there was, I can't remember the exact year, but it was a heavy rain year. And the kiwis basically were just drowning in water, root rot, not growing. And then the next year, or maybe I have that backwards. Maybe it was like, first it was drought and then it was heavy rains. And these vines, these kiwi vines, just never were able to do anything. So eventually he just took his mower and he just mowed them all down.
With fury.
With fury, yeah. Swearing the whole time in his, fake Italian, the 3 words of Italian he knows are all swear words. So anyway, so he said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do the vineyard like I wanted to do. So he took out all the kiwis. He went around to other vineyard sites in Sonoma and Napa, and just basically it was like this, I call him a scavenger, vulture, if you will. He would like say, hey, do you have any discarded end posts? Do you have any irrigation tubing I can repurpose? And he started propagating his own vines in his nursery. So, he was kind of planning out his blocks or his vineyard block by block, and slowly kind of growing it out till it got to about 60 acres.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really successful, kind of a cool story of like,
perseverance, man.
Perseverance and DIY and all that, which kind of like plays into the own route thing, like all these winemakers saying, no, you know what? Screw the establishment. I'm going to do things on my own because I want to, and it's a labor of love and all that. So, so that was his first vineyard, was 60 acres, and then a neighboring parcel of land his uncle had owned and operated as a dairy for about 60 years. Actually, it was a little bit longer than that. It started in like 1913. His grandfather started the dairy, and then his uncle took it over in the 50s, and it was operated as a dairy until 1985 or 6. And then his uncle retired, and it was just vacant land for about 10 years. And my dad approached his uncle's family and said, love to buy the old dairy. The cows were all gone. It was just bare, beautiful, fertile land. He was like, I want to, plant vineyards. So he bought that in 96 and planted in 97. So now between the 2 parcels, we have about 220 acres in total.
Wow. And what did he originally plant? With that kiwi compost?
That's a good question, which I think he could probably answer because I don't know the answer to that one. So
I'm just wondering, like we think of Carneros and we think of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
Sure,
but I don't
yeah.
know that necessarily that was what was planted by people and back then.
Well, I do know that he specifically wanted to grow white wine grapes when he was starting the operation. So whether it was Chardonnay, I think it was Chardonnay. He started with that, but through the years, he's always kind of experimented with different stuff. Saint Laurent was not the first kind of like foray into the experimental, varietals. He was growing, cool weather Syrah, Merlot, Grenache, like all sorts of cool shit. He had some Semillon at one point, and they've all kind of gradually have been phased out for various reasons. The Merlot market tanked, and like he was really pissed because he loves Merlot. I think everybody loves Merlot when it's
well, now my
done right.
favorite Merlot comes from Carneros.
There you go.
Joel Peterson, the Once and Future Merlot. I absolutely love,
Yeah. So, we're kind of getting back into kind of introducing some of those varietals again, the Syrahs. I don't think we're going to grow any Merlot this time around, but,
Do you have wells on that farm?
We do. There's an existing well from the dairy days, but on the original 60-acre parcel, there is a pretty substantial reservoir. And then we do a lot of irrigation because, you can't, in Carneros, you can't do any dry farming. The soil's not right for it. So we also do a lot of reclaimed water irrigation through the county. So, turning gray water, and getting it filtered and irrigating with that. Yeah. So my dad was kind of like one of the leading pioneers of that movement. Is like kind of contracting with the county and figuring out, how can we reuse or reclaim this water and use it for agricultural purposes. So.
I guess it was Truchard that was having so much trouble putting down a well because everything came up with lots of salinity.
Yeah, it's very brackish water because you're so close to
right
San Pablo.
on the bay.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
So at this point, are you selling most of the grapes are you selling large blocks of the grapes to larger wineries, or are you pretty much breaking it up to smaller producers?
We have some evergreen contracts from some, medium-sized wineries in the area. But with a lot of producers, the contracts, it ebbs and flows. Like you'll have a contract for number of vintages with some winery, and then there might be a changeover with the winemaker, or the company might decide to go in a different direction. So we've had a lot of different producers, wineries that we've sold to throughout the years, and I like to say that if there's a winery out there that's made a Carnero, Chardonnay, or Pinot in the last 40 years, chances are my dad has sold to them at some point. So, but yeah, like right now, I don't know, are we allowed to throw out names here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
So Ron Bauer, they buy the majority of our Chardonnay. Pinot is kind of hard to move at this point. There's a lot of excess Pinot that we can't find a home for quite yet. So if anybody listening to this needs some Pinot, can line you up. But it's always changing.
Yeah.
No Pinot for you?
No. Shalini's got in her head that she's gonna get more from you. I can see her wheels turning.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should be looking over that direction. We'll talk numbers after this.
Perfect. Shalini Shaker. Let's talk about your start in the wine industry, or how does a girl from New Jersey end up making wine in California?
The simple answer to that is I've always been the black sheep Indian. I studied music education and got my master's in music performance. And
Wait, so what were you
play?
What were you playing?
the piccolo. See, check out my bottle. You were
Wait a
asking-
minute.
You were asking earlier
Did you
about
bring?
it, right?
Did you bring one?
An actual
play?
piccolo to
Yeah.
play?
Don't you travel with one?
There used to be a day I did travel with one. No, I did not bring it today.
So
One day I'll serenade you.
No
Today is not
no
that day.
piccolo solos.
No piccolo solo. But that is the reference on the label. It does kind of look like a very graphical vine, but it's
Right.
actually a fingering chart.
There you
It's
go.
the piccolo. The piccolo is in Italian called the ottavino, the little octave, because it's an octave higher than the flute. And so my career has been making small production wines, so like little flute, little lots of wine. So that's where the name came from. But yeah, how the hell did I do this? I moved to California on a whim with my husband. I married my high school sweetheart. I finished my master's in New York City. We moved to the burbs. We were in our 20s. We were like, what the hell are we doing here?
Wait, so where did you move to?
So actually a town over from where I grew up, which is crazy. So we moved from when I finished at NYU to Hillsborough, New Jersey, which I can tell you is very different than Hillsborough, California, although not as much anymore. It's a different place. But we bought like a little townhouse. We were living a very suburban life. I was teaching at Princeton Day School, and I was teaching at Mercer County College at night. And I was teaching private lessons on the side, and I was auditioning for symphonies. And so it was like work. But we basically spent every weekend in New York City literally couch surfing. So we were like these married people couch surfing because we wanted to go clubbing. Yeah. This is like, I can't make this up.
That's what you do in the city.
That's what you do when you're in your 20s. And so we were like, what are we doing in the burbs? We have to go somewhere. Well, let's go to Europe. So we thought about moving to Europe. My husband even started getting a transfer within the company to go to London because it would be this great like hopping off place. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do because I probably wouldn't be allowed to work. But we're like, who cares? We'll figure that out. And then in the meantime, friends kind of said, there's a promotion. You should think about coming to California. Come interview. And he had an offer like 2 days later. He said, what do you think about California? I go, well, I'm not going to live in San Jose. No offense, San Jose. I will live in San Jose in the city now. But like back then, it was more the suburbs where he would have been working.
Then is he in tech then? Why would it?
He was in
Okay.
tech. He worked for Cisco back in the
Okay.
day. And I was like, I'm not going to live in Milpitas. That's the same thing as what we're trying to escape. One of the cities. So he said, okay, I'll do the commute. San Francisco it is. And I said, you want to go? I said, yeah, let's do it. So we got here and I was like, I don't have a teaching job.
And what year
the whole
is this?
system's different. It's 2005.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, well, what do I do now? I loved wine. I had fallen in love with wine in undergrad. I kind of got this ridiculous reputation, nickname. I did not go to Princeton University.
What was this
School very close
nickname?
by. They called me Princeton because I would like somehow hustle someone to go to Princeton to this really great Italian restaurant for the prefix menu every like Thursday night. I would like convince somebody that they would spend their like hard-earned $20 to go with me. And then at some point they all figured out that I was like hustling and I was going every week and like making someone go with me. And so they were like, all right, Princeton. I was like, damn. Yeah, right. So our first wine tasting trip was actually to the Rhone Valley. And that was when we were still out east. And then when we came here, I was like, I didn't know anything about California.
Where did you go? Do you remember?
I do very, very, very much. We stayed in the town, this village, I don't know, hamlet of Suzette. We traveled through Gigonda, Vaquera, Chateauneuf. So we were really just in that like very southern Rhone part. And Lirac, Tavel. Yeah, and it was like the days where you just like go knock on the doors and just be like, I can't. By the way, I speak Spanish, not French.
Actually, your French is way better.
Is it?
My
Did we discuss
French,
this?
English,
it's not
and
good.
Spanish.
It's not
So,
good.
yeah.
My daughter like rolls her eyes at my accent.
Yeah.
But we basically would like knock on doors and say like, "Hey, we want to taste some wine," and so that was my first experience with really loving wine. But then moved out here and didn't know my ass from my elbow about California wine and. Would go tasting on Fridays with my husband because I didn't have a job. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And that was at least something joyful. And somebody finally in Napa said like, I'm the winemaker, but this is my wife's family's vineyard. And I was like, well, shit, I'm married already. So that's out the door. Okay. But he goes, there's a website, winejobs.com. And so we're on the way home, and my husband's like, you should go on there and like get a tasting room job. I'm like, I don't know anything. He goes, you should just do it. It'll meet people. It'll be great. And I ended up getting a tasting room job at Rosenblum Cellars. So
that's the
hence
connection.
the
There you
bag.
go.
My wine bag. It's a relic. It's a piece of history.
Right.
And so it was lovely. It was like a family-owned winery, and it was just this. It was actually the most diverse place I have ever worked in the wine business, and I'm still friends with lots of the people I worked with there. They were my first friends in California.
Why do you think that was?
What, the diversity?
Yeah.
We were in Alameda, California.
Oh, okay.
And Kent and Kathy, Kent, God bless them, like, that family is so non-judgmental, so
totally.
warm. He was just such a lover of wine and
Life.
And people,
and
yeah.
joyful and people, and they just anybody and everybody was always welcome, and that was definitely talk about starting in direct to consumer and having some idea of sales and hospitality. Every single person was welcome to walk in as you were, however you came. Show up, drink what you like, don't drink what you don't. That's that. So it was a really lovely place to kind of dip the toes into the winemaking world. And I did that a couple years in the tasting room while I was still auditioning for symphonies.
For San Francisco and
Not San Francisco. I flew to Vancouver. I flew
San
to
Jose?
Chicago.
Oh, man.
No, unfortunately, there's only about 50 piccolo jobs in the country in Canada. So you basically wait for. This is very sad, but it's true. You wait for someone to die, and then like 250 of you roll up, and all of you are qualified, and so
Right.
you play like 3 notes if you're lucky, and if
so you're
lucky,
actually looking at the obituaries.
it's a little
try and get a
it's a little
job.
morose. It's a little morose.
You're like, oh, Dan died.
It's like,
Chicago could use you, seriously.
Chicago was great. I auditioned there a lot. I did Vancouver. Never won a job, but in the meantime, I kind of really got bitten by the wine bug. Not just from loving it, but I was like, oh, winemaking is kind of interesting. And so I would go and bug my buddies in the cellar. Like I'd go back there and be like,
At Rosenblum?
yeah, I was like, what are you guys doing back here? And like my one buddy was in the lab. He was the enologist. And hey, he's like, oh, I could show you how to like check free SO2s. And one of my buddies goes, you go dig out a tank. Go ahead and dig out a tank. And I'm
Right.
wearing like heels and a blazer, and my nails are done.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, cause I was like a goalie in field hockey. Like I'm brute force. I have no finesse whatsoever. I was like, I'm gonna dig a tank out. I got in this tank after work one day and like dug it out, and I was like sweaty and covered in wine and grapes in every part of it or everything. And I was like, this is the best. And they didn't think I would survive it, but I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. And so I really did. Like I decided to work harvest. So I quit as a full-time employee, and I became a harvest intern at Rosenblum. Worked the cellar, survived, worked the rest of the year, went back to school at night because, of course, I had a winemaking degree and like almost a physics minor. So I had like none of the classes you need for winemaking. So I would work all day, and then I would go to JC at night and do biology and inorganic chemistry, and eventually I went back to Fresno State full time and did they have a certificate program, which is basically the major courses.
You're a bulldog, huh?
I'm a bulldog. Go dogs!
To say the least.
Yeah, more ways than one.
Just getting started on that.
But I meet so many cellar rats who are so happy doing what they're doing. It's just like, I'm going there, but I'm doing this and I'm really master this. And, it's like learning a craft, truly, an art.
I think.
Well,
you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, John, you nailed it. Like a piccolo musician, an artist. I forgot to mention. So Dale, he, TJ has met him. He's a big farmer. He fits a part of like, he's out in the field every day, all
He's
day.
wonderful.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But he started off going to school to be a photographer. So he went to Brooks Institute, which is no longer around, down in Santa Barbara, which was really renowned at the time for, videography, filmmaking, photography. And then he got his master's in art at San Francisco State. And he was teaching photography at the Santa Rosa Junior College for 30 years. Wow. So he has like, this big gruff farmer has this like crazy artistic eye. And I've always loved photography, and I do all the photos for the Ricci labels.
Well done, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So, I take these pictures and I show him, and he's like, oh, your contrast is wrong here. No, like you want to maybe adjust for this. And I'm like, dude, this is already printed. These are already going on the wine bottles. Like we're past the critique phase. But like to the point I was trying to get at is like, I think there's like a very common denominator in the wine industry is you have a lot of artistic minds in more ways than one are just like drawn into, making wine and being in this industry because it is like a very like, I don't know, artistic minded field, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
But
And
then
there's-
tactile.
It is,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that too.
My husband always says, because he now works in venture, and so he's like part of creating young companies, right, and guiding that process. So I think that's like super fulfilling to him. But he's like, but you like literally make something
You get
every
to touch
day,
shit
right?
and get
Yeah.
dirty,
Which is
right.
We realized when we had kids, it was so easy to explain. What does mommy do? Like, mommy makes wine. Right? Or like, what did you, they asked me, like we have, our dinner conversations. Mom, what did you do today? I topped barrels, guys. I wasn't that excited. Like, I topped barrels. I don't know. I did punch downs. But they actually know what that means.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I think my husband tried to explain, like early on, our daughter's older now. She actually does understand what he does. But early on, he explained to her how they help growing new companies and new ideas. Actually like grow their company and achieve it and give you a product and they give the money. And so basically she was something along the lines. So she's like, yeah, daddy like makes money, or daddy like spends money or something. It was something like very basic. And it totally missed the point.
She was probably like, thank God for mommy, because mommy has a job and daddy is like not doing anything.
Well, right, which is like the hilarious part, right? Because as Tara Jane said, what? We are rich as winemakers, right?
Yeah.
The soul is rich.
Yes, that's right.
The bank account, not so much.
That's a great comment.
Yeah, the
You mind
soul
if
is
I
rich.
steal that? The soul
Please.
is rich.
soul
Yeah,
is
that's
rich.
great.
But my mother was the one who actually told me to go for it with pursuing music initially, because my dad, I love my dad. I'm very much him in so many ways. But my dad also like had, they were immigrants and they really built their entire lives.
You're second generation.
Yeah. I'm my sister and I are the first ones born here in the States.
Yeah.
My parents came here in their 20s. My dad literally came with like a loan. He didn't come for his degree. He already had his degree. He came to work. He worked in like the mailroom with a master's degree. I mean, it's very typical, American dream kind of story. But, he always had the like, I get that you're good at this and that you love it, but like maybe take one comp sci course on the side, maybe.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, can you pay your bills? And I said, yeah. And I'm not going to be rich, but I can pay my bills as a teacher. At least on the East Coast. And so she was like, I think you should do that. Wake up happy every day, because she's like, I'm not happy every day. She did the countdown for the last 4 years to retirement, and they had different obligations, being new in the country. And so we are built on the backs of that, and we have that privilege. Yeah. But I hope my kids will do something more lucrative than I do, but I guess I would understand it if they felt the calling to do something super creative, but like could provide that for themselves. in whatever existence that would have to be. But yeah.
I mean, it's nice when you can do both, but it's nice when you are passionate about something, do that. And by the way, you can also pay your bills or even save up and
Do what
have
you
a
love.
401k.
Do
But
what you love, you never work.
That's what they
That's
say.
the old
That's
saying,
what they
right?
say.
Yeah.
oh, please.
I know. It's,
Come on, it's
by the
true,
way,
though.
winemaking is a ton of work. But that to be that I wouldn't trade it for something else. And I have a taste of corporate America. I did do like corporate temping when I was in undergrad. And it was so soul sucking to me. And I understand. I have other people have a different viewpoint. Lots of people either like it, or if they don't like it, they're fine because they clock out at 5:30, they sign off, and then they have a life. And so I understand both of those things. But the entire day, sitting in an office, I felt my soul dying, and I was like, I knew if it wasn't music, if I had to do something, at the time I didn't think there would ever
What
be
did you
something
temp in?
else. Jersey's full of telecom and pharmaceutical.
Okay.
Yeah. I did lots of like data entry and little data analysis and answering phones. It was like 20 years old and it was good money. It was good money. And I just was like, nope, I can't make that trade.
No.
I did that, John, when I grew up working in restaurants. So it was from the time I was 15, dishwasher, busser, server. And when I was 19, one of our really good customers at a restaurant in Petaluma said, you'd be really good at this job. I work for Macy's Magazine in the advertising department. We're looking for a person to work in traffic. It's a 6-month temporary position, but I think you'd be really good at it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I'd love to try new things. So get the suit and go work in. So traffic, you're in between the copy people, the photographers,
It's an important position, Brian.
But you're the person that like has to go from department to department. And I remember everyone talking shit about each other in the other departments, complaining about the other people, how this wasn't right and that wasn't right. And working in a restaurant, you were like, you worked hard sometimes, but you all hung out together after work and you had a good time. And the work environment was, and I thought to myself, I'm 19. I've been working with adults who have a great time, and now I'm working with these adults who are always bitching about each other, and thought that is for sure not the life that I wanted to lead. And I got offered to stay on after the 6-month temporary position. I told them, go shove that job, and I went back to restaurants.
Yeah.
Stub and shove it.
It was not
on
for
the
me.
other hand, having owned an ad agency in Chicago and New York, I mean, everybody partied together at the end.
See,
and
this is a
everybody talked
different
shit about,
time,
the
too, when-
creatives didn't do this and the copy, it sucks. But, it's all good banter and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
John,
It's a fun,
were you
fun
like a
gig.
Don Draper?
Yeah, I got that full vibe just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did.
John is a 4 martini lunch alumnus.
Well, geez, guys, let's catch up here. Let's go.
I know, that's why I
He's
want
got an
to
empty wine glass,
I
though.
want
That's-
to grab your wine from next door, but in the meantime, Tara, will you just talk about the first Riesling that we had, and then
that
we'll
was
sort of get caught up on
delicious.
the wines.
I've never had a Riesling like that.
Okay,
That's
great.
beautiful stuff.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I brought 3 Rieslings because I have been very, very interested in what California can do with Riesling, and I feel like there's a joke about the joke's actually about Syrah, but I feel like you could tell it about Riesling in the wine industry of like what is harder to get rid of than syphilis. Syrah, because Syrah is notoriously really hard to sell. But Riesling suffers from a similar problem where, people think that Riesling is going to be really sweet, or they think that it has to be very old world, like, with these really high notes of petrol. And, I think people in the industry really love Riesling, but getting Riesling out there into the world has become this kind of mission for me of talking about what California can really produce. Okay, so.
What a label.
It's beautiful,
I
right?
just put it in my
Did
glass.
that.
This nose. Okay, I know people are like deeply passionate about Riesling. I'm deeply passionate about Austrian Riesling in particular. And like that just.
Okay,
could be
you're
a
going to like
ringer on
all
the
3 of
nose.
these, I promise.
Could be a ringer.
This is Elkins. And so Matt and his brother, he's now the winemaker at Tyler Winery down in Santa Barbara. And This is from Chiliano Valley, right in Petaluma. So, super cool, like that Petaluma gap that like the wind just screams through. So really a cold climate. The first two are cold climate. The last one is a little less so. Bone dry. This wine is bone dry. It's not, I think this is something you can drink all the time. All of these wines are wines that you don't have to have a lot of food with. You can really just enjoy. You can certainly pair them with a lot of different wide spectrum range of foods, but I think, I just want to talk about Riesling all the time, and I want to talk about why it can be made so beautifully in California. And we have this like kiss of sunshine that, like to your point, like Austrian Rieslings, and I think like for the most part, like an Old World Riesling has, I shouldn't say it that way. I should say California Riesling has a kiss of sunshine to it that I think Old World Rieslings don't carry. Like because we have hotter temperatures, there's like this brightness and like a lift that California Rieslings have that just makes them super approachable and refreshing and bright and sunny, and I freaking love them. So yeah, this is the first one that I wanted to share. This one and the last one we'll taste are on En Route right now in our summer 6-pack, which somebody was like, that's stupid, you're putting 2 Rieslings in a 6-pack, but they're vastly different. So to me, like encouraging this conversation around Riesling is super exciting. What do you think?
I love it. And on the topic, Riesling is one of the grapes we're going to be growing in the vineyard.
Wow.
Fuck yeah.
But I mean, you just said it's impossible to sell, so that doesn't bode well. But
no, listen, I'm screaming from the mountaintops, and I think other people are too. And I think it is starting to become something that, people are becoming more aware that this is something that doesn't have to be like sweet,
Right.
or like,
Thank you.
yeah.
or I mean, this wine is very dry,
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fruit is so beautiful, and
So beautiful.
So we're finding that with Viognier here is that we can introduce people to a unique varietal, introduce people that sometimes aren't necessarily even like daily wine drinkers like us, but when they bury their nose into it, it's pleasurable. And then when they try it, they're sort of expecting something to be sweet, but then it's a bone dry wine. So then their mouth starts to water. They're like salivating, and they're like, holy shit. I had no idea that I loved Wagner or whatever the fuck you guys call it. But you kind of get them. It's a great gateway drug. Riesling,
Yes.
I think, is in the same vein. It's like you get someone, and people who know everything about wine love Riesling.
Yes.
And people who know nothing about wine generally love Riesling
Yes.
too. Yeah.
I also love when somebody's like, oh, I don't really care about Riesling, and then they taste one and they're like, oh wait, this is Riesling?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just did. I was amazed.
I love
I was
that.
expecting. Look, my first wife, German family, very cheap, drank Wedding Veil and Blue Nun, and I hated it. So when I got to France the first time in '87, I had never had anything but. I was in Bordeaux area. We went to Le Mans and tasting Bordeaux, the first glass of wine. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, totally.
But this is beautiful. I love this stuff.
Oh, John, wait till you try this one.
Yeah.
I'm about to.
So the next one is from this woman, Janie Wilhelm, she's one of the assistant winemakers at Desperata and Herman Story down in Paso.
Yeah.
Another great incubator site. Like a lot of people, they're very supportive of their people starting brands, and we've had several of the people that work for them on En Route, which is awesome. But they just have a great culture and great people. And so this is her first vintage, and it is. I mean, it's from. I'm going to say it wrong. Coquelicot. Thank you. Coquelicot Vineyard in Los Olivos, which is like between Ballard and Happy Canyon. So super, super cold. They have like that whole mountain range is the only one in I think the country that goes east to west. So super, super cold winds. The really cold vineyard, also farmed organically. All 3 of these. And I think this one's just like kumquat city, man. It's like
It is so
just
good. Not just the
screaming
aromas,
delicious.
but then you put it in your mouth and the finish on it, it's so good.
I get a taste of pears, like a Bartlett pear, yellow one. It's
pear on the beginning of the palate, I get.
yeah, I guess. Beautiful stuff.
Oh,
Right?
that's kick-ass.
highly
Yeah.
It's so
educational
good.
and entertaining
Yeah.
for me.
So she's a badass. She's actually changing the name, but I'm bummed because these labels I think are some of the coolest I've ever seen. They have
Yeah, you got the orangutan on there.
orangutans and leopards and snakes and toucans and
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, she has an artist friend who
Okay.
felt the vibe of
It's
the
like
wine
a Jungle
and-
Book kind of
Yeah.
vibe to it.
It makes you want to be someplace tropical, or maybe just by your pool, just pound this by the pool.
I would pound this by the pool.
Yeah.
Patio
Again,
pounder.
doesn't super need food, but could pair with a million things,
Yeah. No, I
Super
would drink
refreshing.
This entire bottle, if you let me.
right?
Yeah.
Right now.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, hold on. We got a few more bottles on the table that we
John's
got to
more
get
of an expert
to.
at this, I think, than everybody else.
Okay, so we can do the last Riesling, and then my Riesling diatribe can wrap up. But so this wine, I think actually I brought the last vintage of this on when I was on last time, but it's a
This
different vineyard.
is. Oh, okay.
So they didn't source from Wertz except for this vintage. Where they used to source from, they couldn't get fruit for this vintage, and so Nicole Walsh, who is one of the people who makes Riesling
Sarah.
out of, she makes Sarah out of the Wertz vineyard, which has become a very well-known vineyard because of the Cabernet Pfeffer. But has the oldest Riesling vines, as far as we know, in California. Own-rooted, head-trained, Pat Wertz's. Talk about your dad, Tyler, being old salty farmer. Pat Wertz was born on a tractor, and he is old school. And he doesn't put up a deer fence. He just puts on an alarm and goes out and chases the deer off on his own.
He's got a shotgun.
For real. And so I wanted to bring this back because this vintage is from the Wertz Vineyard, and I think is, to me, one of the highest regarded vineyards for Riesling. And this really shows what it can do, because it is. Wait till you put your nose in this one, Shalini. It is.
Okay. All right.
It's
Get
a
myself
knock your
ready.
socks off.
Stealing myself.
Yeah.
Is that the nickname? Do you go by that? Shally by short for short?
Oh,
No?
short, usually shawl.
Shall?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't go there initially. Just you gotta get there
gotta
naturally.
earn it.
You gotta
Gotta
earn
earn
it.
it.
You gotta get there.
A few glasses of wine. Hopefully, I'll get there
Shelling
later.
There have been quite a few winery crews that I've just been by my last name, which is funny to me because, again, it's super
Hey, Shaker.
Shaker.
It's kind of a cool name. I mean, not
It's,
kind of cool. It is cool.
I mean,
Shaker booty.
I did once get really hurt during harvest, and they did call me Shake and Break, but I still did show up the lab crew. Shout out, guys.
Oh my God,
I
you
showed
have
up
me
the lab
thinking
crew.
about fried chicken, and I'm thinking about these wines with fried chicken, and I'm
there you
losing
go.
my mind.
Did you try this one?
Not yet.
Okay, here you go.
I am on the list, though.
So these guys, this is this is actually the brand that made me start Own Root Collective, because
Which is it?
It's called Found. And Andy and Mabel, Andy was the assistant winemaker at White Rock, and Mabel most recently was the assistant winemaker, or maybe the associate winemaker at Groth. But they both just packed it all up and moved to Indiana, where his family has a winery. And so they're going to continue this project. They make Riesling and Mission, because she's from Chile, and so Pais.
Nice.
And so they make a killer Mission also. But they've moved to Indiana, and I'm gonna miss them terribly.
And so wait, so they're going to stop making wine? Or
No,
they're
no,
gonna
they're
continue
gonna-
making wine and then just come out here?
They'll come out for harvest and make
then
this, and so
blending
they
and
can
all
still
that.
make it at White Rock Vineyards, where Andy was the winemaker, which is how I originally.
Very cool. And so all three of these wines, I mean, can you find these in the stores, or these?
No,
are,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
25 cases, 50
Absolutely not.
cases, and I think 25 cases.
Ooh.
So,
Right?
I mean, these are like a
Nice.
barrel,
Wow.
or so each, maybe
I know,
two
you're talking
barrels
half a
each.
ton on
Yeah.
some of these, which is crazy.
Happy wines.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, you can find she doesn't have a website. They both have websites. But I
love
know Found can't ship out of California. So maybe Elkins, you could maybe find
The shit for those listeners out there, the stuff you really want to get a hold of is funny to me. Some of the stuff that I really like is stuff where they don't even have a website. It's
Yeah.
like you reach out to them, you slide into their DM on Instagram and
Totally.
go, "Hey, where do you live? Can I stop by your house and
Yeah.
buy 6 bottles of wine?"
That's right.
That seems to be the new
Listeners,
cool
feel free to
model.
ask me if you can come by and buy a couple bottles. Shameless.
Brian, to your point, I used to work with Peter Heitz, who is the winemaker at Turnbull over in Napa.
Yeah.
Super cool dude.
We're doing
and,
Shy Poke next month on Own Root.
Oh,
He's so
yes.
great. I was just at Turnbull this week with him.
Oh, I'm glad that he finally like came around.
He doesn't send emails to people. I'm like, how do you sell your wine? You have to fill out an order form.
That's what I was
like,
getting at.
And like send it in hard copy. He'll
Yeah.
take a fax still.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was like, dude, Pete, how do you sell any wine? Nobody's printing this shit out.
Incredible.
Yeah.
There are people out there that don't even know what a fax means.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but so Shy Poke, he does really cool.
Those wines are great.
Yeah, I mean, he's making, $200, $300 cabs day to day, but his Shy Poke, it's Charbonneau, it's Zinfandel. It's kind of like this throwback to the way that Napa used to be,
That
like
he farms also. I
Yeah,
mean,
that he farms,
it
yep.
himself. His
he's like a
family's
fifth generation winemaker, so
13th.
I hear
13th?
13th generation
Wow.
winemaker.
Okay, never.
Wait a minute. Let's
Yeah,
do the
from the
math
old
on
world,
that for a
from the old
second. That's
country.
like 56. I mean, you're talking 600-700 years of making wine.
That's what
Yeah.
he said. I
Like-
mean, back to the old world.
BC, right? That's like,
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus. Right
Right
around
wine for
Jesus.
Jesus.
yeah.
That's how old that Heights
Well,
family
they
is.
did serve it at the Last Supper, right?
That's what he told me.
Okay, so just because we're kind of freaking out on these wines, right? Just throw it out right now how people can get a hold of these wines.
OwnRooteCollective.com,
And you have all three of
baby.
these available?
I don't have any more of the Lumina, and she is sold out until the next vintage, but I will have it again because people love it. You know what's so awesome is like I've been screaming about Riesling so long that it is probably our best-selling variety at Own Route. And I also scream about Grenache, so I feel like I'm so proud of people that have been members of Own Route for a while because they're listening and they're like, okay, I'll try it. And then they like it. And then when I'm like, fucking try Riesling more, I feel like people are paying attention. So it makes me really excited that
It also should be noted that everybody should sign up at least for the free membership on your site just to check it out because your emails are brilliant. And I just take joy every time I get one and get to read it.
Miss Adorable's walking up, Althea Katuri. Looking like she's having fun today.
Hi, Althea. You want to sit in on the podcast?
Big smile. You want to say hi? Oh, running in the house.
Maybe not. Yes. She's not here today. Her and her parents went to go see Britt Floyd last night, the Pink Floyd cover band, so she's probably sleeping in. Oh.
She's very tired.
Yeah.
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 Do you want to explain that more to her? Why they're so tired?
I think they were out late
She
last
lives
night.
with Sam.
Oh,
She
yeah.
totally understands
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
It's all
true.
cool. How could you live with Sam and not understand life?
Tara, to talk about how did you find her wines and how did you hook up with
Yeah, I've
Ritchie
worked with both
Vineyards.
of these guys. So yeah, let's see. How did I find you guys?
I might have
think about
found
this.
you actually. I think I knew somebody, one of my friends who has a brand, and I can't remember who it was. I think posted something on Instagram with about Own Route, and I was like, "What the hell is Own Route?" And then I started looking into it. I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." So I emailed TJ and I was like, "I don't know if you're interested in what we got going on, at Reaching." Kind of explained it, and she's like, "Yeah."
That's like a dream project.
yeah.
Richie, I love it.
Yeah.
And they make a Muscat that was like also knock your socks off.
I was gonna mention that because like you geek out over our dry muscat, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like Riesling-esque. It's
Yeah.
kind of got some of the same characteristics, and it's definitely got that polarizing. With like the general consumers, they hear muscat and they go,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, dessert wine, late harvest wine." And it's like, no, this one's not like that. This is gonna be like super perfumey and aromatic and like great like spicy food wine. And like when people try it, they're like, "Holy shit! I didn't know that muscat could like taste like that."
Yeah.
So
We just had that conversation the other day in the tasting room with some people that were in there, and they were from some other part of the country, and they were talking about muscat. And I'm like, "Oh my god, I love muscat!" And they said, "Seriously?" I said, "Yeah, it's delicious
You like oysters? Duh.
for sure." So, Tyler, are you guys making any wine at all yourselves?
my dad, he used to. It's actually kind of funny. Like he had aspirations probably in the early 90s to start his own winery. But we had that outbreak of phylloxera and
What was that?
late 80s, early 90s. So he had to like rip out a whole bunch of vines and replant. And then just being like a one-man operation. I think there was two ways he could have gone. He could have bought his grandfather's dairy and growing out the vineyard operation, or he could have stuck with his initial 60 acres and started his own winery. And he opted to, plant more vines. And then at that point, being a one-man show, he didn't have the time or the energy to like pursue the winery, but he was making, homemade wine for a long time.
That's what I was wondering, because someone who wants to plant grapes back in the time when he did,
Yeah.
but then was selling them all, it seemed to me that it was like maybe there was some inkling of wanting to make wine at some point.
Yeah. And he's actually...
Wasn't there a story about how he was going to put a winery a tasting room on one of the main roads and then couldn't do it for some reason? I feel like he told me that story.
The guy's got tons of stories.
Tara's spent a little time in the vineyard with him, maybe hearing some stories.
I love his stories.
Yeah.
There was a time I think that he wanted to start his own little brand, but it was like the vineyard was his side project, so he had a full-time job. Like Tyler said,
teaching
so he was
photography.
teaching.
So
and then there was something where he wanted to convert a barn into a winery or into a tasting room or something, and like it became too cost prohibitive for him to turn it all in because of regulations and county stuff. I think that it was like too expensive to do.
Well, and then the replanting too. That was a major cost that he had to take care of. So, the homemade wine that he makes is killer. Like I remember being in college up in Chico, go Wildcats, Chico State, woo. But I would like come home on breaks and like take all these shiners and be like, oh, what is all this shit? He's like, oh, that's all this Merlot I made. And I would bring it up with me to Chico and share it with my friends. And like, we were by no means wine connoisseurs at the time, but
But you were getting spoiled nonetheless.
we were getting spoiled
Yeah.
nonetheless. I mean, we were putting it, we weren't beer balling the wine we were actually enjoying it, and it was great. So yeah, he has kind of this hobby winemaker background. And who knows, maybe down the road, maybe we'll have our own little winery set up out there on the property, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So
But you can enjoy Ricci tastings there
yeah,
as a friend of the family.
yeah,
Right?
we don't have a tasting room, but we like to fly kind of under the radar for people that reach out to me directly. We can set up tastings on our property. We have a cool little setup like vineyard pond.
It's a beautiful place.
It's
to
so
spend an
Thank you.
afternoon.
So
Thank you
peaceful.
both. Yeah.
Well, tell people how to reach out to you, and because we have people that come visit that like to do sort of more off the beaten path
Yeah.
stuff.
Your 16600 people would also love it out there. It's
Right.
so lovely, and you can
Yeah.
totally bring a sandwich and like hang out, and maybe you'll meet Dale, who's amazing, or Gianna, who's also amazing, and Tyler will host you, who's obviously cool.
I didn't hit amazing. I was just like a step.
You
above.
like, you came in
Amazing, amazing,
solid
cool.
browns, solid bronze.
You're right here. I can't like. You're right here. I can't blow your head up anymore. Weird.
So yeah, we have a cool setup out at the vineyard. Sweeping views of Carneros, a pond that we sit by. It's kind of rustic. I call it rustic chic. So if you email me, Tyler, Tyler, at RicciVineyards.com, just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'd love to come out. We can set up a time and figure it out.
Cool.
All right,
Yeah.
from Sears Point, where do you go?
Sears Point. So if you're coming south from like San Francisco, so you
North from San Francisco, right?
Right.
So the
Sorry.
track, yeah.
Dyslexic, I guess. Going north from San Francisco, so Sears Point, when you hit the Bonos, the gas station there,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
and you veer to the right, you're heading east towards Napa.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of people are familiar with where the Fremont Diner
Oh,
used to be,
absolutely,
and
yeah.
now it's Lou's
Okay.
Luncheonette. It's a really popular like weekend spot for out-of-town
Everybody?
people. Everyone, yeah. Locals will too.
Packed.
Right after you hit that, the next road, Ramel Road, we're right on Ramel Road.
Okay.
So as you're heading east towards Napa, like if you go to Napa, you've gone too far. So turn around and head back.
Are you near Larson?
Larson is a little bit west. So
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, that was the first place we ever stopped coming into the valley, and we went out back into the barn, and they had
Larson's great. They're such good people.
a board, across a couple wine barrels, and we just tasted wine
Yeah,
with their
they're
dogs. You know, it was great. They have the 3 lab cab now and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, wonder. But you know, that area is just so it's like when you said you were driving through France and you just knock on doors. This was the cool thing. I mean, that we found you could take any road you want. There's a little village at the end. Everybody's super friendly, and any vineyard, any place you pull in, they've got great wine. And
Yes.
it's just, I mean,
It's surprising to me there's not more wineries down there, actually, because the wineries that are down there make great stuff. Like Bouchain, I think, makes really
Yeah.
Shane,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Donham, I know like is not your dad's favorite personally for the art, but
I
like,
was wondering,
those
'cause
wines are well made. And what's the other woman that used to be the winemaker at Donham?
Oh, it's Blue Farm.
Blue Farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Molar Rock.
Anna the Rock.
Anna Molaraki. Yeah.
I mean, killer. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's surprising there's not more
I think people are like,
deep in the deep area of Carneros.
yeah, I think it's like, I mean, of course I'm biased. I think like Carneros is like this last vestige of like this cool, old school kind of like no holds barred Wild West wine tasting. Like you go into Napa and it's like, it's glitz and glam.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you know, $10 million.
adult Disneyland.
Yeah.
$4,000 bottles of wine.
Yeah, you know, $10 million tasting rooms. And then in Carneros, you're like, what the fuck? Where are we? Like, you know, I had a customer who, actually, Brian, he comes into here quite a bit. I don't know. He always texts me. He's like, I'm at winery 16600. Like,
Ted Johnson.
yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Ted.
Yeah, Ted. The first time he came out to Ricci, he was driving down a driveway, and his partner was like, "Where are we? Are we going to like get murdered when we step out of the car here?" And it's like,
Run
"No,
over
you're
by
just-
a
you're-
cow.
Yeah, you're just in Carneros. This is just how we are out here. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
He absolutely loves it out there. And when
Yeah.
he's here, he talks about you guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I love this area because it's like so close for me. Like I'm San Francisco and a little further south based, but I do make wine from Anderson Valley. And part of the charm of up there is sort of the same vibe of it being like so laid back, but the quality being so fucking good.
yeah,
And like only now are people starting to realize, right? And I think somehow in the kind of historical importance and establishment, like people have somehow forgotten Sonoma side of like Carneros, and I don't know why. Like what is going on? Like maybe it's a great secret for the people who really care. But
Yeah.
it's like if all the people, you know, when you go tasting, right? It's just that special experience of like, it's like why a wine tastes amazing because you're sitting on a dock in like Sorrento, Italy, and you're like, this is the best like Fiano I've ever had in my life. Meanwhile, it's not the best Fiano you've ever had in your life, but it's like the best Fiano in that moment. And like you have that, you know,
It's a
that
sense of
memory,
place, yeah,
that experiential memory. But I think people forget, like, you can have that super close to home, close to the city, like where you guys are,
yeah,
and the quality of the wine's actually damn good.
yeah,
Right? So you get to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I think people really forget that.
absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like, not to say that I mean, you work in that, but like, it's not to say the other side is not like wonderful and a different experience. It is. But like, when you're just talking about us small guys who really like are like, it's blood, sweat, and tears, you can actually come out and like see your place. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and you know, and my dad, he's you know, he likes to kind of sit in on every tasting or as many tastings as he can when people come out. And like, you know, I'm obviously on the inside, but for people who, you know, come to our property and are hanging out with us, like it's so rare to have this, you know, the owner, the originator of this vineyard come, the grower to come and sit in with people and just spend 2 hours just talking about, you know, growing grapes,
You know
being a
why
farmer.
he does that? He
Yeah.
loves it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Passion.
loves it.
He loves it and they love hearing it. And it's just a really cool experience. So yeah.
It's so different than, you know, going up to a bar and somebody pouring you a half ounce and say, I'll be right back. You know,
Totally.
Yeah.
10 minutes later. And yeah, it takes all the fun out of it when
Yeah.
you do that.
Yeah.
Shelly, where are you making your wines?
So I make my wines and several of my clients in San Francisco.
Okay, so this is what I want to get into because
Great question.
I think you mentioned that the other night when we saw you in San
Yeah.
Francisco. And who was the gentleman that was next to you?
Ed Kurtzman, who I think may or may not get a kick out of me saying that he's the OG winemaker of San Francisco.
Right.
You know, because Ed's been there forever. He is also a bulldog. Go dogs. So I actually met Ed when I was a student at Fresno State. I can't make this stuff up. I was a grad assistant to two different professors, a microbiology professor. Actually, they're both microbiologists, but one was teaching the microbiology class in winemaking, and the other one ran the sensory lab. And so I worked for both of them. Both since retired, lovely people. And so Susan Rodriguez, who ran the sensory lab, invited me out to lunch.
What's a sensory lab?
Oh, so we used to do experiments like sensory analysis for various treatments, and we would oftentimes it would be things like Gallo would have like done a study, and then they'll put the wine in front of essentially like a bunch of participants. So we would run that study and collect the sensory data, and so we basically ask people.
Wait, we got to get deeper into this.
And
Okay.
she needs to meet Hardy Wallace.
Okay. Okay, what does that mean? Gallo did some.
So like they might have like we wouldn't necessarily even know what the treatment was, but it could be something
Right.
like flash pasteurization or something. Something I would like. Something I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole as a winemaker.
Right.
But again, I make. To Tara's point, like I make the teeniest amount of wine. If I was making 100,000, 200,000, 1 million cases of something,
you fuck with that.
you gotta,
Absolutely.
because it's got to be the same.
So
and
we
it's gotta be
hear
stable
these
when it's
stories
away.
every now and then, but it's like I know Rosalind Reynolds, who has MA Wines. She just like by the way mentioned that she used to work in the lab at Gallo and was talking about how they were coming up with like these different flavors of like cherry and blah blah. And so we were like, whoa, hang on a second. Do you mean that you guys were creating like? And she said, I said, did you ever put it in a wine? She goes, no, I worked in the lab. We just came up with this stuff. We didn't do anything with it. But I'm thinking, well, then why would you even pay people to come up with this stuff?
Oh, I mean, in this case, this is like they're contracting the university to like do a study where we've done the treatment, and then how is that perceived by consumers? So there's a panel of people that would come in, and they'd have some amount of training or control, and then we'd set them up on computers, and then we have all the samples in front of them. So it's all preparing all the samples, and get everything ready, and then they get the feedback, and then that goes back to whoever is running the experiment. So like we're just the sensory lab. We're just running the.
So you're actually pouring wines into glasses for these people. They try them, and then they're entering things into the computer about like how it made them feel, or if they enjoyed it, or whatever.
All those things.
Taste
like,
analysis.
What fruits
Like
did you
market research,
perceive,
but
or
with
like
your
how
mouth.
did you perceive the acid or whatever? And so, and of course, like so that professor, like in the terms of the actual program, her job is actually teaching everybody flaws. It's teaching you how to perceive. Like for instance, everybody's got their talent tasting. This is a thing. Like one buddy, my counterpart, he can nail residual sugar. Like I can't even come close to. He will tell you like he's like, nah, it's like 1.3 grams. And
You're
like,
right.
"You're
Everyone
like a
does
savant."
have that. Have their.
I can nail
thing, you're
TA.
right.
I can nail TA all the time, all day long. Everybody's got their thing that they can just like
VA.
hone in on. VA? Okay,
Yep.
see? So it's
Here,
like,
you know what? TA, nope. For me, is a nope. I mean, wine tastes dead, but like some people just like have that. They'll just, and it's so strong.
So, yeah,
Is that how that's how it has for you?
as soon as I have it on my palate, I'm like, and then you can kind of calibrate against your sugar, and you're like, yeah, that's over 6.5 grams per liter, right? Like, I got that, right? So
I get that. I feel like I'm eating a sweet tart. Like all of a sudden, I almost
With
feel like
TA?
a little bit of pain, like in my
interesting.
gums for some reason.
give me all of the high acid wine, and to the point that you were
Yeah.
saying earlier, by the way, that Dale was like way into the idea of white varieties. Like I almost made Eau de Vino only white varieties, and my husband, who loves white wine, was like, "I think you're gonna have a problem selling that. I think you're gonna make red wine too." I was like, "All right." I mean, it's not that I don't love reds, but
Yeah.
the fact that I'm going to bring it back to Saint Laurent. The fact that Saint Laurent is likely related to Pinot Noir makes so much sense in my world.
Okay, we're gonna go there,
We are
but
gonna-
first,
we're gonna get
I
there.
want to know exactly where you're making the wine because
Okay.
I think a lot of grapes used to get harvested here in Napa and Sonoma, and then were either by railroad
Yep.
or by truck were taken to San Francisco, where
That's right.
then the wine was made. Like I'm assuming on the pier somewhere, because then it could be like it was easy delivery system to go wherever you wanted. So
we're in the Bayview district. I used to make wine. I was the custom crush winemaker at Roar, and that was in the Dog Patch, which is where Crush Pad used to be back in the day. I mean, Crush Pad was started in the Mission, then went to the Dog Patch. So there is like a really long history, and of course Bluxom Street was there for a long time, and there are sort of like no more. Ed Kurtzman's facility, it's a shared facility, so we basically share all the equipment, we share space, we share interns, but many of us are, we're getting into like the nerdiness of winemaking and compliance, but we're independent wineries. I'm an O2. I hold my own license with the federal government to make wine, so many of us are that setup, but we're all in the same building and we're kind of roommates with each other. And his facility, I think, is the last like substantial. I think there may be one or two very small people doing it like out of their like homes and kind of smaller facilities. But I think Ed's is really the last bastion of 7x7 winemaking. There is Treasure Island Wines, so that's still technically San Francisco also. But I think in the 7x7 of San Francisco, it's Ed's place. And God bless him, because it's not easy to make wine in San Francisco. Like trucking grapes in, receiving them in a warehouse, and there is a long history of it, but for us, it's becoming a lot of people don't want to pay the insurance trucking companies, or they're charging us extra to come in. And it's like, we're literally right off the freeway. Like, get off the freeway, drop off the grapes, get back on the freeway. But I get it. If you're paying higher insurance premiums,
I mean, less AC of the energy bill, I would assume. I mean, you think your building is probably a little bit cooler than...
We're actually like fairly cool. So the Bayview kind of sits in this interesting area where it's like, it's foggy frequently, and then it'll peel back, so we get sun midday, but it stays pretty windy, and we actually can see, because we can see Bernal Heights, so we can see Carl like rolling in at any given time.
Right.
I mean, you can always feel
That's
it too.
Carl the Fog.
Carl the Fog with a
there
K. But yeah, so it's an interesting area. It's a sunny area because it's the eastern side of the city, but it is fairly cool, and the fog does roll back in pretty thick most days. Like this morning, I came in here just now wearing a sweatshirt because I stopped by the winery real quick.
Right.
And it was sunny at my house, 10 miles south, and it was foggy and windy at the winery. So so I'm doing that in terms of where I'm making my wine, where I would make Waite's Mast, where I make another gentleman's wine, Xander Soren wines. And then I do a little bit of, I make wine for the Neely family in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They're a state vineyard, but we actually have new plantings that we can't make the wine. We don't have enough space in the winery, so we do a little bit of that. Our like rosé and our stainless steel Chardonnay in San Francisco at its place. Yeah.
And so how did you get hooked up with these other people that you're making wine for?
Yeah, kind of fallen into it. I worked, kind of Pinot onwards. I worked at William Sellium. I ended up managing what's now
Small place you might have heard.
Small place you might have heard
What
of.
year?
2010. Not a terrible year.
Okay, so you were working with Bob Cabral.
Bob Cabral's last
Okay.
year, and I was going to stay on actually into 2011. And
Happy birthday, Bob Cabral, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
We were talking
Happy
about
birthday,
that
Bob.
this morning.
Yeah, so I was planning to stay on for 2011, and that was right when Bob was leaving and Jeff was coming on.
Right.
I was commuting from San Francisco to West Side Road, which is about 2 hours each way.
I know
75
that's a
miles.
crazy commute. I know you want to live in the city so you can go out clubbing at night, but Jesus Christ.
Do you remember she's a bulldog? We talked about this.
What's that?
Do you remember that she's a bulldog? We talked about it. Yeah. She'll do anything for the pursuit of what she wants to do.
I mean,
This woman.
I will. Do
and
not
then it's
stand in my
not
way.
just
That's
it's
right.
not just because you're kind of doing reverse commute, and people that don't live here, if you don't know what that means, most people are going into the city in the morning and then out of the
Yeah,
city.
but you have Santa Rosa
at
in the
night,
morning,
but-
which was like the kind
Oh,
of that was
fuck
the
me,
yeah. You
JC,
just
traffic
sit
and-
there. You sit there. But like on the flip side is managing a crew at 7 a.m. means you're like on the road really really early. And that was
Right.
this is pre-children, and I really thought it was sensible. I was pregnant actually the year that I was managing Punchdown, which was Copain Custom Crush when I was there, and that is how I kind of started working with all these clients. I got basically into a custom crush job, managing a facility with multiple wineries. Does it sound familiar to what I just described? And I think people don't realize how common it is to share space,
Right.
or even if you're like a quote estate winery, to not have every single grape necessarily be grown on your estate. You might grow like most of your grapes, but you might also buy grapes from, and when I say buy, I don't mean, it sounds unromantic, and I hate when people say that. You may have a block.
Source.
You may source and have a block or rows in somebody else's vineyard because you're interested in a particular variety, right? So all of that is like fairly common. I think people don't realize, especially on our scale, we're talking about these like small micro wineries, boutique wineries. We can't spend the money on the equipment. I can't afford a sorting table.
Yeah.
Or if I did, I mean, I don't know, like I'll be dead by the time I ever pay it back, right? So I guess good luck to my children paying off that loan. So the idea of pooling resources into a shared facility is an amazing thing for this. If people are really into the kind of wines that we are sipping on right now, I'm really into these wines. I mean, the only way that this gets done is by sharing resources that way. And so, yeah, that was my foray into that first venture of managing a facility with 40
But there's a lot of that going on.
That's what I'm saying.
Tremendous amount.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like larger wineries might host, as you guys were saying, sort of being incubators for like, hey, like 4 other cool little brands, and you maybe work for us or maybe you don't, but like we'll let you kind of start out here and grow, and then maybe you'll move somewhere else as you outgrow our space. So I think it's really common, but
I'm wondering if that's unique to both of these valleys here. You know, like Alexander and Napa and Sonoma.
I think.
Well, it's land prices. There's very few people that actually have the big castle and the long driveway and the crush pad facility like on property, like Benziger or I don't know, Chateau Saint Jean or Kundi or something like that. It's a lot.
I think it's
people
more
that
fragmented,
I know are,
and I do think people forget. Like, I think partially because the story is so strong between Napa and Bordeaux that it's a chateau, it's an estate, and it's all estate fruit, and it's all produced right here. That actually like. We're probably more similar to Burgundy. It's very fraction, like right? It's
totally
like you guys are an expert at growing grapes.
Yeah.
I went to school for viticulture. Do you think I am the viticulture consultant for any of my clients? 100% not.
Yeah.
Right? Because my day is making wine.
Yeah.
I'm informed. I can have a conversation with my grower. I can be involved with my estate client and our vineyard team. But I'm not directing traffic. I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I think that's very common. And I think people don't realize that. Like, people are experts in grape growing. People are experts in making wine. People are experts at selling wine. Like, it's a very, like, that sort of vertical integration, you cannot be small and have that. It's really more common to be piece by piece and working with each other, which is why relationships are important. Like having a grower you trust to do their thing in the vineyard, to not tell them how to do it, but to ask questions and be like, hey, like, what about this? And I saw this in the winery last year, and so I'm seeing this, and what does that mean to you? And how do you want to change things in the vineyard? Or how can we approach that? Or, how do we meet each other's needs?
Yeah.
We're each experts in what we do. To me, that's the key, is always having that good relationship. Because when you don't have the relationship, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So how do you decide what wines to make?
For Eau de Vino, it's been a strange journey. I said I love white wines, high acid white wines.
Yeah.
I knew
Here.
I really wanted it. I wanted to have like Gruner. I love Gruner.
Yeah.
I have very close Austrian friends who actually like literally just had dinner with them last night. They're here. And I have loved Gruner. I've drank a ridiculous amount of Comtal, Wachau, Kremstal Gruners. And there's not much in San Francisco or in California. And so I wanted to source from somewhere. I happened to, the year I lost my mind and decided to start a label, ping Richard Alfaro, who had a fairly established planting for California. And somebody had just decided to start working with it. And he goes, well, yeah, sure, I can get it to you. I was like, yes. Yeah. So that was a win. And then I thought, well, if I'm in the Gruner land, and hubby was like, you should do some kind of red, I think. I think that'll be, some people are just not interested in white. You and I are passionate about white, but I think some people are not. I was like, okay, it'd be cool to find Blaufränkisch, but the only Blaufränkisch is actually out in the foothills. I make cool climate wines for everybody I work with.
Because?
It's my passion.
Yeah.
To me, that and this is not to judge anybody else's wines. My personal passions, my palate, lay in high acid wines from cool climates, longer growing time. Obviously, depends on the season, and climate change is messing with us everywhere. But that sort of complexity, lower alcohol. I don't want high alcohol wine. I love acid in a wine.
Yeah.
Red too. So that has been my comfort zone of how I want to make wine. And now that I think I'm working with the right people who are in those regions, I don't want to spread into other places that are hotter. Like, for instance, if anybody's listening, I want Chenin Blanc. I really want Chenin Blanc. But I don't want Chenin Blanc out of a hot region. And that is historically where it's been.
Ricci, we're growing that too.
I know.
And things get closer.
We're just
all
building
the
up your
time.
order today.
Yeah.
Eau de Vino's not saying no. We'll talk later.
Okay.
What do you love about Chenin Blanc?
Well, here's the thing. I'm, with my brand, why put my money in the pot, right? It's exploring things I don't necessarily know how to make from my career. But does my knowledge of making Chardonnay and Pinot Noir inform how I'm going to make these other varieties? Does the same sentiment work? Do the same decisions happen? Is there a different matrix of how to use those skills? And do I like drinking it? Period. Yeah. Right. So like I have a ridiculous collection of St. Laurents now. We are going to talk. I'm going to taste them with you guys. That my friend brought over and
me.
And of course you, please, and you guys. And then Gruners, obviously, I have like a very deep cellar and love of Gruners. I love Chenin. I love Fiano. I love all these different things. But I think at this point, it's a very teeny, teeny, teeny brand, and I want to add another white to the mix. But I want to do something in oak, because my Gruner is unoaked. So I want to do something neutral oak.
Interesting.
Because to me, that's the textural relationship. What have I always missed in a blind? Yeah. A very aromatic Chardonnay I have missed periodically and called it Chenin.
Right. Totally.
I've called it Chenin. And, but I mean, I've also like nailed like a good Chenin in a blind.
But you'd be open to other white varieties like that you could put in oak, like Verdelho or...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's...
Viognier or...
I don't think Rhone... even though I fell in love with that region, I don't think that's where my personal California passions lie. Mm-hmm. I can get down with like more stainless steel, Fiano, Palangina. Right. I don't know, but I have thought about if anybody has any Melon de Bourgogne out there, like please call me. There's like I don't know 2 vineyards in California, but like that kind of thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you were saying, I'm like. I would eat oysters and I would make this wine and I would see. Like, I don't stir any of the leaves on my Chardonnay. And I make old line Chardonnay out of the Santa Cruz Mountains, like own rooted 40-plus-year-old vines. Yeah. I don't stir a thing. But I think we get textural richness.
You don't need to with that.
We don't need to. But wouldn't it be cool to think about like neutral oak Malone or like Chenin and sit there and go, I'm going to stir on these 2 barrels. I'm going to not stir on these 2 barrels. Yeah. Let's see what happens because it's everything that I do or don't do with the wines I already make and love.
Yeah.
But like want to kind of flex. This is like the winemaking flex of I know what works with Pinot and Chard in my sensibilities and with my client sensibilities. But like how do I stretch out of that and like learn? Because I'm a perpetual nerd. I'm still doing my WSET diploma. I won't tell you how long it's been. But like that kind of desire to be like, I want to experiment in good ways. Like everything I'm going to bottle is going to be good, guys. Like I'm not ever going to put something in front of you and be like, it's flawed, but just drink it and like it. No, it's going to be clean and right and good and delicious. Yeah. But like if I have room to play in there where I get to experiment.
How did you discover this Saint Laurent?
Wait, hold on.
Sorry.
Because Saint Laurent's gonna. I want to know, what do you want to put the Chenin in? You want to put it in some used oak?
I want to do probably neutral, but I will say this:
okay.
I did my Ricci Saint Laurent is in a 600-liter Stockinger cask, Austrian cask.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Homage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I had to go full Austrian. Like, look, guys, I'm California making random Austrian wines right now.
Totally.
So, I went deep in because again, it was another place to learn. Like, there's all these Napa wineries using Stockinger, and you know, it's right. sprinkled here and there. People are starting to use it on. One of my girlfriends out of Anderson Valley uses it on some Chardonnay. So I have a 228-liter. Stockinger barrel that I did not end up putting on the Saint Laurent this last year, and so it's sitting there. And so maybe there's 2.5 tons of Chenin that wants to find me from a
okay. No, I want to make this happen for you. So and I'm wondering about concrete or amphora. If you've thought about going down that route.
Love those vessels and want to actually do it for my estate client with their new block of Chardonnay, concrete, and egg. But I'm unwilling to move it. I've seen friends get wrecked. It has to be in your permanent cellar. It can never move.
Yeah,
that's just what.
You don't know the history of this show, but we lost 60 gallons.
Bart dropped the pallet.
He's never going to live this down. This poor guy.
I know, poor thing.
Oh,
okay,
it wasn't. It was his palate that broke, so he didn't do it.
That's why all his wine club members are getting a piece of the amphora probably in their wine club shipment this year.
That's kind of awesome. Set it into jewelry. Some other maker can make this happen.
Right. Okay, let's get into Saint Laurent because we haven't even scratched the surface here.
Saint Laurent.
The Ottavino Gruner, though, by the way.
Thank you. Yes,
it was
killer.
kick-ass. Yeah, killer.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always say I don't think Comtel, Wachau, Kremstaller, the references. I think this is more like Weinviertel or like Wagram or something like that. Like it's a different regional reference. If there is a reference,
It doesn't
to
have to be a
California.
reference.
If
No.
there is, if there is,
It's a thing,
No.
and it's just a
Totally.
fucking delicious white wine that's
Yeah.
dry and
Totally.
floral
Mineral,
and
green apple,
green
floral. I mean,
and
it's like
all the things.
Yeah, you're talking to a high acid white wine drinker.
there are the addicts. We need a club for the addicts for the high acid white wines.
I have a club for that.
I was gonna say maybe Tara could like just do one just for the high acid freaks.
We need a high acid 6-pack.
To be frank, I don't think I've sold a wine that's not high acid.
Fair.
So
Yeah,
There you have
well,
it.
And you've gotten wines from Santa Cruz, and you're high acid, so you haven't played around with pig pool either.
No, but I will drink a good
Pig
big
pool is
pool and be a real
that
happy
bad.
girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
but you wouldn't probably oak that.
I personally know, but I have seen Julie Bonneau actually in Picpoul de Panay will put it in used oak barrels, put it in a shark tank, and then submerge it down 60 feet in an oyster farm. And then it does a little natural batonnage for like 3
This
months.
whole like it sounds very referential to the Santa Barbara. We're gonna throw some like sparkling wine in an ocean and get.
I don't know.
In big trouble.
I remember like 10 years ago hearing this story when I was the wine buyer for the Girl in the Fig.
Tomorrow's
And
Bay? Where is this?
no, this is in France.
Actual people de Panay. Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So of course we had to get that wine because it's called Libero. If anyone can find it out there, Libero. Yeah, total geek. We didn't even need to try the wine. We're like, who's the rep?
And how was it?
We need cases of it. It was amazing, and it had like more mouthfeel to it. And then you could. It said that it had this sort of salinity because it was underwater in the ocean, and I don't know that that's necessarily true.
But it was a good story over at the Fig.
Are you
great
kidding?
story.
When you- okay,
I
we
had
talked
20
about
of them.
selling wine. Selling wine is all about.
tableside, you could sell that all
Oh my
day
God! Are you
long.
kidding? We, of course, they sold it to me with just reading the article on it, and
Yeah.
then
But
to sell
this is
it to the
okay.
tables.
This is what I always say because you are clearly you've been on the floor. Like this is what you do, and it's people who are great at this. God help me. Like I'm good for 5 minutes, and I just don't want to be with people, and I want to be alone with barrels. Right. Everything I do is so not sexy. It's not dogmatic, and I mean that for even my Pinot and Chard that I make for my clients.
Yeah.
I've been working with Waits Mass for 10 years now. There's nothing dogmatic about what we do. Do we mostly do native use? We mostly do native use.
Yeah.
Like a 2020 happens, do I do native use? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
Native and Malif. There's all these things about the interventions that are, someone said terroir is, time and place, but a friend said it's time, place, and people.
It's people, yeah.
Right. So I think that's right because you put the same grapes in a different person's hand, you're going to get a different wine.
For
Period.
sure.
They could be similar maybe if they have similar sentiments, but they will not be the same.
Yeah.
But that's not sexy. That doesn't make for like I put zero sorry, I'm gonna just shit a little bit on
Bring it.
0-0.
Bring it.
Bring the shit.
Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I'm not sorry. It's okay
Yeah.
because if that's your sentiment and your sensibilities, go do it.
Yeah.
Just don't tell me I'm wrong the way I do it. So I'm all for everybody doing their own thing and having because otherwise if it's one way to do it, it's Coca-Cola, guys. We make
Yeah.
Coca-Cola,
Totally.
which is not what we do. So it's all about everybody having a different sensibility about what's right. So I just don't like the idea. I'm minimal intervention, which is the least sexiest thing you could possibly say.
I know because then the question
Because
is,
it's a-
Well,
what
because
the
it
fuck
doesn't
do
mean
you
anything.
do?
What do I do? I believe in
You
using.
buy really good fruit
I
and
buy
then you just
really
babysit the
good
grapes.
fruit. I do.
Yeah.
And guess what? And then in a year where you have a 116-degree heat wave
And a fire.
and a fire and whatever, I actually have the skills to deal with it. And am I gonna doctor up my wine? Hell no.
Right.
Would I make a tiny adjustment of using a lab culture yeast that I know I like? 100% I would.
Yeah.
100%. And do I think the wine is manipulated because of that?
Right.
I do not.
Yeah.
So that's where I get a little bit prickly, and I think there's the flip side of things.
We couldn't
talked
tell.
about,
You
which is
can
like-
you can
I
make
know,
that fight
guys.
on sulfur. Like there's a lot of
I believe in
the
sulfur, guys.
The sulfur
I
fight
believe
is a
in
big
sulfur.
one.
Sure.
It
We like a stable product that we can ship to other states.
we do, but we have also enjoyed wines that are 0-0 and that don't have sulfur. And maybe they're not all of them, but I know that we have had people on
And
this
I've had
podcast
people's natural
and
wines that are gorgeous.
that I have enjoyed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it does happen.
Yeah.
I think it's to your point. I think it's more the dogmaticness. So if you have dogma in any direction,
Correct.
that's when there's danger zone. And that's true in all parts of life and brain usage and philosophy of anything.
Delicious. I'm not
anytime
saying
you have
there
dogma
aren't-
about anything, it's the danger zone.
There are delicious 001s. There are delicious natural wines.
Totally.
But also, this is really me going out. Guys, why did you give me so much Riesling? I will say this.
I love it. Turn her on.
Just turn me on. I will say this. I think if you are choosing to be natural, 00, anything, and you can choose to be minimal intervention as I am, or you can choose to be maximal intervention, however you choose.
I've never heard that term before.
I'm putting it out there.
Maximum intervention.
We all know what that means.
Yeah.
If the wine in the glass is good and you enjoy it, because this is something for humans to enjoy, then I don't think it matters how you got there, so long as you followed your own sensibilities as a winemaker. I have a problem with you give me a glass. If I have Brettanomyces in my white wine, guys, I'm not happy. I do not want to drink that.
I also don't want to drink that.
So please don't tell me that
does?
that's philosophically better than what I do. That's my life. I'm done. I'm done on myself.
You.
Sometimes I do. We opened up a carbonic Cab Franc from Loire
She said white
yesterday.
wine. She said white.
Strange.
I know, but John, I don't mind Brett and some
people
wines.
dig it.
Some
If I had
people
a
really
peanut,
like
if I
it.
had a
little
peanut butter
4EG
sandwich to have
and
with
like
it,
a
I would have been in
Rhone,
heaven.
But I don't want it in my cellar.
Right? No.
To me, it's got that too much of that funky butt going on
Yeah.
in my mind.
Baby diaper?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that all too well on the last
I think
3
maybe you
weeks.
just over time develop like a kind of, just like you do for older wines, right? I don't think you necessarily start off liking or appreciating 30 or 40-year-old wines, but then over time you sort of start to appreciate this. I think with wines that have a little Brett in them, I think over time you start to kind of enjoy it almost.
Okay, well, I will give you that. But, now I'm going to be a nerdy winemaker. Most strains of Brettanomyces will produce 8 times as much 4EP horse, like Band-Aid,
Right.
as they would 4EG, the nice, clovey, sort of barnyardy,
Right.
like kind of delicious. Like if you're going to have a layer, not in my cellar, but
And both of those can present differently, also depending on the strain within that they are.
that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that the Brett that you're talking about
Right.
is largely different from.
Right.
I think that a lot of reason that people can sell wine with Brett in it is because it's something that people immediately notice. Like the same reason that you can sell wine that has an obscene amount of oak on it is that it creates a flavor profile that somebody that doesn't know a lot about wine can be like,
Right.
I identify with that. Like I can pick that out. I can smell it. I can taste it. I know how to talk about it. Because that's the most scary part when you're learning about wine is like you don't know the verbiage that goes along with it.
Totally.
The intimidation factor. But if you have big Brett bloom, like an over oak situation or like any other like overdone situation in a wine, it's something that if you have more of a novice palate, it's something you can identify.
I was so now that we're on the topic, full disclosure, when we started, so Ricci Vineyard has only started doing wines in 2018 was our first vintage under our own brand, and the 3 wines that we started off with was a rosé, a Pinot, and then the Saint Laurent. And the Saint Laurent, I'm not the winemaker, but the facility where we had the wines being made, there was a Brett issue, and we caught it, and we stopped it, and it was like it really didn't speak to any of us within the family. We're just like, what is this garbage, And my dad was straight up be like, this is fucking ruined. Let's dump it. And it's like, we can't, I don't want to, get off on the wrong foot and sell this wine that we don't 100% stand behind. But at the same time, like we're tiny, we're just getting off the ground. Like there will be an audience for this wine. And, lo and behold, there's people who kind of like that barnyard funkiness about it. For me, I kind of grew into it. Like, it's very different and there's a time and place for it, but I still like the bright, fruity Saint Laurent that we're doing now. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there that, it's not, sometimes bread is done and it's not, the wine is not flawed. It's just, it is what it is. So,
And then you have, when you catch it early and it's not crazy. And I will say, again, I'll go back to minimal intervention. How many wines have I filtered? Very few in my career. Does that mean I won't? Absolutely not. And if you have a Brett bloom and you catch it early and you still taste your wine, it's still delicious, and and you see it, right? filter it. You're frozen in time.
Yep.
You're frozen in time. And is that a giant intervention? Is that something that suddenly makes the wine like lesser quality? No. Will it age differently than if it was unfiltered? For sure. But it doesn't change the quality. And I think these are the things that I get like stuck on with people being like, you have to do it this way, or you should not do that, or there's all these different ways. The point is to have something delicious in your glass.
Yep.
Totally.
Brian, I'll give you a Bready St. Laurent.
I
When
wanna
we're
try
done
one of
here. Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, and I should have spoke for myself. I should have said that I can appreciate it, but it's a lot of times it's Bordeaux. When I'm trying something that has a little Brett, where I'm like,
Sure.
it almost like seems to go together.
Yeah.
And then there's something about Mourvedre.
I was just gonna say,
Oh, well, Mourvedre is a
Southern Rose.
totally different, sweaty little feral beast.
Yeah, and it's for some reason I actually enjoy that.
Yeah.
I can be fine with a Chateauneuf that's got like a little low level
Yeah.
and it's not band-aidy. It's
Yeah.
kind of in that just like clovey earthy situation.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to make
That's
that.
where I can handle like a little BA in those also.
Yeah. All right, let's get on. I mean,
Let's
we're drinking
talk
Saint
about
Laurent.
Saint Laurent.
Let's get into it.
Yes.
all these sides.
It's and I don't know who to ask this question to. What the hell is Saint Laurent? It's from doing my own research. It's like I've heard that it's a cross between Pinot Noir and nobody knows. And then I've heard that it possibly was like its own seed, where they took a seed out of Pinot, maybe planted it like Randall Graham is doing with his whole crazy project up there, and just like making these, his own varietals. So, I mean, you're the one growing it.
Tyler's the
So
I just kind of stick with the unknown. Like, I say Pinot and unknown because I think like I've heard all these crazy theories, and we at this point I don't know if any of them are right or what. So, I just say one parent is a Pinot and the other one is an extinct grape of some sorts, and
It also could have been a seed for sure.
or a seed, yeah. But I don't know, Brian. You had more questions about like what it is or where does it come from, or where do we want to go?
I think
with
there's
the
like
Saint Laurent?
that's like
Ampelography.
Well, I know, but I was going to say logical, like almost like phenomenological. I was trying to go there, but it was too many syllables for this far into the conversation. But
I thought we were going to get a Far Side song mixed in there.
it was real close. Wait, have you been on my Instagram lately?
A
What's
little bit.
happening? What's happening? No, I was going to say I think there's there is some correlation between Pinot Noir. So whether or not
Clearly.
it was a seed at
Yeah.
some point, there's some genetic similarity to Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
So that whether or not it was a cross or it was a seed at some point, there's something in that. I will say this. I always tell people it's like if Syrah and Pinot had a baby.
Yeah, I make the Syrah comparison a lot. I got like these sultry like underpinnings of the Syrah, and it's like this bright fruit lift of like Pinot, and it's like, yeah, it's something in between. It's like a Pinot from like the wrong side of the tracks
I say it's if Pinot Noir went backpacking.
with no deodorant, just sweaty
like
pits.
a 6-week tour in Europe in hostels.
Yeah.
I know, and I get kind of a GSP thing, so I could even see like a little bit of Grenache. And
Sure, 'cause
talking
there's,
about
like, that
Randall Graham,
brightness,
it's
yeah.
almost like that language of yes wines that he's making, where he's picking the grapes and then letting them dry a little bit
Yeah.
before
A thing that
pressing
he did
it.
also at Bonnie Doon, but yeah.
But
Okay.
so
Yeah.
for me, it's like everybody says Morello cherry, and like what the hell is Morello cherry? Morello cherry is like what you make. This is what you make maraschino brandy cherries, not those like gross things in the Shirley Temples that my kids drink, but like the ones that go in my Manhattan.
And the
That's
Manhattans,
right, yeah.
thank you.
The good ones.
Okay, that's what
They cost
And-
so much.
But it's that cherry skin. It's that brandy cherry
Yeah.
skin. That to me is like
Totally.
the top note of Saint Laurent.
Totally. And so why is it you're making this wine?
Yeah, I mean, I had my crazy Grüne Veltliner thing, and then I wanted to do an Austrian red because that felt like something interesting. And the more I was reading, this like possible connection to Pinot Noir, which has been my bread and butter my entire career. Like that felt like something significant and cool. And
And there's only 6 acres of it in the entire country.
Totally. Hell
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
which
And,
is amazing.
I mean, the fact that that Dale even decided that was something that he was going to put his
I know.
time and money and
Which is
energy
just
into,
amazing.
because he had a buddy, right, that brought that he tasted it, and then his friend brought
Yeah,
him
yeah,
over
we have a-
cuttings.
Get it from?
how many cuttings did he bring? Like 60 cuttings or something? What is that?
I think we started with 80 vines. So 80 cuttings, grafted it over, but
And he brought them from Austria, where there's no more of this, or
it was
is that how the story goes?
So our friend who works in the industry, he is works for a nursery, so he's a nursery rep and makes his own wine on the side. He's from Germany. They were doing my dad and this guy were doing a bunch of research, like, okay, cool climate, Carneros, like what plays well in this region. And so they kind of settled on Saint Laurent because, it seemed like it would, take to, the area, and then nobody else was doing it. So that was like the cool factor. So the German friend flew to Germany, found a vineyard in Germany, actually, where the grower was ripping it out and replanting with something else. Said, hey, can I take some cuttings back to California because we want to introduce it there? It's like, yeah, go ahead. So that classic, smuggle it in a suitcase story is what we did.
Brian,
And I think there's statute of limitations. I don't think we can get in trouble for that now.
who
So
was telling us that they smuggled cuttings in their sleeves?
Oh yeah, I don't remember who
As
that
they
was,
came
but it
over.
was.
is it John Caldwell? Because that's
Couple dozen in each
He
arm.
had him taped to his leg.
I
Long
think
sleeve.
it was we had Patrick Capiel on the show, and he was talking about some
that's it.
Lodi, some things that they had planted over in Lodi. I don't think he was talking about himself. It was about someone that he
Yeah.
knew, or that you could
Very
tie
creative.
it together as like a Christmas decoration, tie a bunch of twigs together, and then put a little like red balls on it, like it was, and
That's
then you
your
could
Christmas
send it,
wreath?
and right, almost
As though
it
like
was
you
a
passed like
Christmas
the
wreath.
ag inspection coming in.
I don't know.
You put enough bows on it, maybe.
You put it up your sleeves, they don't know.
Tie it to your leg.
I pat it down all the time. I don't know.
Wear that long sleeve shirt,
Right.
man.
But I will say this. So this to me was like cool. It's here in California, this one
Yeah.
vineyard. I'm going to bug the hell out of this guy. But also, I had been tasting. We were actually just talking about this with our friends who were here visiting. I had loved Austrian wines before, but they got married almost 10 years ago, and we went for the wedding, which was Karen's hometown is closer to the Munich side border of Austria, but they lived in Vienna. And so it was only close friends and family and the U.S. friends that flew and went to the wedding. And then we literally rented like a white van and drove across Austria and stopped in Comtal and Wachau and tasted with them. And, I mean, talk about amazing stuff. You can like run through a vineyard and just like open random bottles of wine, and they're super fine with that. Apparently, it's amazing. But then got to Vienna, and it was supposed to be their wedding reception in the town that they've just moved to outside, where there's lots of vineyards in the Weinviertel. And I said, everybody wanted to go to the Naschmarkt one day. I was like, I've been to the Naschmarkt, and I would love to go to the Naschmarkt again, but I actually really want to go to Burgenland, guys. And they're like, okay, we'll take you to Burgenland. So here's my newly married couple friend and me third wheeling it, like the old married woman third wheeling it, and we like went to Burgenland to like Umatum and tasted like a bunch of their wines, and I bought like the Vomstein and brought some wines home. And we've of course have run through that, but Christian just resupplied me, so. That was kind of like the.
So
I
what do you-
actually
what do
have
you-
had this variety, but what the hell?
What do you
in
notice
California?
is the difference between the California versions and the European versions that you've...
that's that.
I feel like so. I
Right.
asked him to amass like a bunch. So he came like 2 months ago for the first time in a long time, and brought me a handful of wines in a suitcase. And this time he brought me a full case, mostly Gruner's, but like brought me about 4 Saint Laurents. There's a very different quality level depending on where it's grown, and alcohol too, which is a sort of interesting thing. Because I, of course, mine is 12.6, and my 2022, which just got bottled, is 11.1% alcohol. 'Cause we picked before the heat wave.
So
Dale
European
pulled
way
it.
higher, right?
Can be. In
Okay.
some places it's lower. So it
Interesting.
depends on exactly where it is, which is really interesting to me. And now that I have this 2 vintages deep, so I know so much about Saint Laurent right now, 2 vintages deep of making it. But now that I've seen like 12.6, so I know it kind of, at least in California, it wants to ripen on the earlier side. And I got to tell you, the 11.1, at first I kind of was like, oh my God, he picked so early. But also, like, we had a giant heat wave coming in. It was 100% the right decision. And it does make me want to say to Dale that I think this is kind of what to do. And can we kind of lean there? And because I really like where the 2022 is.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting place. But now I have these wines that my friend has brought me. And I was not joking when I said, let's taste them together, because I think it'd be really fun.
That would be fun.
But there's different alcohol levels there. And I think like then it'll be interesting to contextualize alcohol level against flavor profile against where it was grown in Austria. And what does that compare to for Carneros?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm loving this. This is beautiful stuff. Beautiful.
And that's hers. And then, John, we're opening up another bottle of Saint Laurent.
The Ricci Vineyard.
This is
the Ricci
Ricci, yeah.
Vineyard.
So thank you,
Which
John.
now you guys tell me, would you? So this to me is, and I know this is, I'm doing this a lot more with some red wines, is serving them with a little bit of chill on them,
Absolutely.
which I would, I would recommend.
I like
for that
mine
wine.
cellar temp or even just a couple degrees below.
And what do you consider cellar temp for people out there? 56, 58,
somewhere
60?
between like 58 and 60. Okay.
Yeah.
So like if I really want like
California winter.
I want to bring Saint Laurent to the table at like 54 degrees and let it come up.
Who's on the label?
Oh, so the label of the Ricci Saint Laurent, that's my dog Zoe.
And what kind of dog is this?
She's a mutt. She's like a lab border collie mix. So
Okay.
yeah,
I was
she's
gonna, I thought corgi.
it's a little bit bigger, but yeah, she's this picture of her just running amok in the vineyard
I
on the
love
label.
it. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
Great shot.
Yeah, thank you.
Your dad taught you well.
Oh yeah, you know,
He did.
critiqued me enough, so something stuck.
Okay, so who's making the wine?
So right now we have everything custom crushed over at Tin Barn Vineyards.
Yep.
8th Street here in Sonoma. Mike Lancaster has his brand is Tin Barn. For people that don't know, really good dude, makes really solid wines, and a whole gamut of his Merlot, in my opinion, is one of the best that I've had. It's my own palate, but I really dig his Merlot. He does really great Pinot, and we've had a working relationship with him probably like going back 20 years, where my dad and Michael were just, he was buying fruit from us. He was making Pinot for Tin Barn. And so when we decided to kind of go on this venture of like, okay, since I'm not the winemaker, who do we trust to kind of like, hand this baby off to? And it was like, Mike was willing to do it. I think he has fun doing it because we do things that he's not doing for his own brand. So he's allowed to kind of like, play and experiment with different techniques and different styles and different grapes. And like, we're going to do a carbonic Saint Laurent this year, which I think he's really looking forward to. So
White or red?
That picked Brian up, didn't it? Right there.
Well, no, I'm thinking about. I mean, it's already got that really incredible fruit, and then to do carbonic on it is just going to be like.
And these are
This
two
one has
different
a
wines.
carbonic on it.
I know that. So Tara is pointing out Filomena, another Saint Laurent, and Luke, the winemaker there. He does a lot of carbonic on a lot of his wines.
I think
Not
this one's
100%.
about 25%.
Yeah,
carbonic.
just a touch of it. So
It lends itself well, for sure.
yeah.
They're very different wines, though.
Yeah.
The two we've
Yeah,
tasted.
so far these two are very different. Absolutely.
So I definitely have approached it the way I make Pinot Noir, which is very rarely using whole cluster. So
That's what I was wondering.
yeah,
Okay,
no.
yeah.
So, but I do whole berry, zero crushing.
Yeah.
So whole berry. So you like for me for Pinot, that always gives you that pop of fruit, right? And there's always like you get to press time, so you drain off your free run, and there's always a few berries that have not been broken down. And if you pop one in your mouth, it's the fun. It's the candy of one. It's the candy of harvest. You got a little like carbonic fizz in the berry.
The fruit from this valley is incredible. Last night we had some organic strawberries from the farmer's market, and just you pop one in. It doesn't have to be super sweet. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
The rush of flavors and the burst of moisture, and it's just a beautiful situation, really.
Yeah, my personal goal, like making reds, I mean, honestly, making anything, I always want freshness of fruit. Yeah. So when I was saying about alcohol levels and stuff, right? For me, it's okay if it varies from vintage to vintage. That's the beauty of being a boutique producer is like, it can be different. If the weather is different, it can be different. But I would never pick, because I've had growers, get in a relationship for clients and they'll say, what's your target Brix? And I go, what does your vineyard do? Can I taste the wine? And can we like talk about When did you pick? What was done in the winery, etc. For me, I would never be like, I'm picking at 22 bricks all the time because I never want to go over like 13% alcohol. Because some vineyards will give you zero flavor.
Yeah.
There would be nothing there. Or in some places that would be super developed fruit by that point. So you have to like understand a site and then obviously adapt to a vintage. And I think the thing I was just talking about was totally vintage adaptation. So I think trying to pick on freshness so that you always have that purity of fruit.
Yeah.
Like Jolly Rancher.
It's all about the fruit, man.
Jolly Rancher may be a thing that's often used to describe wines I've made. I'm not mad at it.
What about for this one? Do you know the winemaking for this one?
So I think that was all destemmed. We didn't do anything like whole cluster. So this is 2019 vintage. We didn't do a 2020. We actually did pick a little Saint Laurent in 2020 in hopes of salvaging it. Just with a thicker skin, it was less prone to the smoke taint damage. So
Even down there, you got it.
What's that?
Even down there, you got smoke taint.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay.
Our 90 acres of Pinot was just decimated. Like we just left it hanging because, it was ruined. But that being said, we did pick a little bit of our Pommard Pinot, hoping that it would turn out okay, and then blended it in with some Saint Laurent in 2020 and made a cuvee out of it.
I was kind of curious about that, about blending Pinot and the Saint Laurent together.
Yeah, it's killer. We've now done it. So 2020 was the first attempt at this cuvee, and we threw 25% new Hungarian oak on it. So
there you go.
Yeah, so neutral French oak and then 25% new Hungarian, and
As a co-ferment or separate?
separate.
Yeah.
And then so 2021 we did. So it was like 50-50 blend of the Saint Laurent and Pinot. And then in 2021, we decided to do the cuvee again, and we flipped the script, and we did 67% Saint Laurent, 33% Pinot. And then we haven't released that wine yet, but so far it's like, for my money, that's like the best wine we
awesome.
have.
That's really cool.
And when is the release on that?
We're at the tail end of the 20 vintage, so I would say maybe end of this year. And
When they sell out of the last one, John.
yeah, I mean more or less, but yeah.
You don't want library wines hanging around?
RichieVineyard.com.
Yeah. I mean, we're not intentionally trying to do a library. Like if there's a handful of cases left over from a vintage, we're like, it might be kind of cool to hold on to these for a little bit and bust them out if somebody's interested in trying some, older wine. I mean, none of our wines are like super old, but so doing the blend, the cuvee has been really fun too. But
Did anybody do a 2020?
I made plenty of wines. In
Did
Twenty.
you?
A lot of people. I mean,
Absolutely.
people did.
Yeah, I made.
A lot of people didn't. But
I mean, I make a lot of Santa Rita Hills wine for somebody, and so that had zero. There was nothing down there.
Yeah.
At all.
Lucky.
My estate clients in the Santa Cruz Mountains, we made 2020 Pinot, and we said we were just going to wait and evaluate and see where we're at. Some of it was sound.
How's it tasting now?
Some of it was sound, but didn't have the character of the blocks because of the way we picked it, and so I bulked it out.
Yeah.
We have one wine that we did bottle that we intend to sell, but it is going to be, we're going to have a tasting in a couple more weeks, and it would be a fall release anyway, so we'll see whether or not that gets out there. Our 20 Chardonnays sat in the same environment. You cannot tell me that there is anything that is out of character of the vintage on those Chardonnays. Not a single thing. They're perfectly expressive, I think, of what was and what is, and so that they're on the market and happy with that. I made 2020 Pinot out of Anderson Valley.
Just north of all the fires,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. They got late smoke from Willits for like a day or two, but it didn't even pervade the whole valley. So it was pretty far away.
I remember photographing the sky, and it was
the apocalypse.
a
The
gray sky with
the apocalypse
dark
day.
The apocalypse
Everybody
day
that
is
you
so
say that
weird. Yeah.
apocalypse
Everybody
day,
knows
and
what it
everybody
is.
knows
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
We sat outside at noon, and in San Francisco, I remember because I left my Santa Cruz Mountains client Neely. I came to San Francisco, and it was lunchtime, and there was no sun to be had. It was that weird apocalyptic orange sky,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
we were like, you know what, guys, this is the day everybody drinks whiskey.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow may not exist.
Well, and it was supposed to be like 90.
That day of harvest.
It was supposed to be like 92 that day in Napa, and I remember it maybe broke 60 because there was such a thick
There
layer of
was
smoke.
no
Yeah,
UV coming.
Yeah, there was just the sun couldn't break through the smoke. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was like super cold. But
Yeah, going over to Napa was an amazing drive right about then. I mean, because I did it a lot. And, you know, somebody was found one of those signs, welcome to Napa Valley. I think it was up north. And there, you know, smoke and flames behind them. And it's just amazing photo.
Fantastic.
I just want to quick point out. So since we're talking about 2020 and the vintage and the smoke issues that we had, you know, presented a lot of challenges for a lot of people. But, you know, when I was working in my other job in Napa, I had a lot of customers that would call and email and say, you know, I don't want any 2020.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try it or approach it. And it's like,
Yeah.
it was so frustrating because a lot of people who elected to make a 2020 vintage did so confidently and said, like, this wine is great. And, you know,
That's it.
yeah, you know, a lot of winemakers are not going to like stand behind a product and say, oh, this is shit, but we're
Right.
going to throw it out there anyway. They're like, no, this is great wine. And sometimes they were saying, like, you know, the 2020 vintage was actually pretty decent.
The 2020 vintage would have been amazing.
It was going to be
I know, it was
awesome.
gonna be
It was
great.
going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, like all things considered, smoke included, it was like, it turned out okay. And like, you know, so
Yeah, well, to that point, exactly. Like, many of us started testing really early.
yeah.
And when the lab here was bombarded, I pooled resources with a bunch of my colleagues. We sent stuff to Australia.
Yeah. A lot, yeah.
So
a
we
lot of
had
brands I work
early
with sent
numbers.
to
We had
Australia.
sensory evaluation. I sat with 6 colleagues and we double blinded all the wines that we all had, like not the ones that we were like, okay, this is not going to happen, but the ones that we were like, I think this is okay. But before I like trust my own palate, because I've been living with it, let me double blind this and put it in front of like 5 other winemakers.
Yeah.
And we did that with each other.
Yeah.
And that's where it was like, I actually picked a couple wines I made. I knew they were mine in the mix. And so that to me was the moment to bulk it out, because everybody else was like, these are some of the best wines I tasted this vintage. And I was like, great, you want to buy them?
Yeah.
Because it was like, it's one thing to make a sound wine, and it's another thing to go, oh, does it represent a place? Because if you're really talking about like terroir driven wines. But yeah, there's so much good wine from 2020.
Yeah. Don't shy away from it.
Don't shy away from it. And
That's the
don't,
thing is,
people are not going to wreck the reputation, to Tyler's point. Small wineries are not going to wreck their reputations on it. No? Oh,
large.
gosh, right, okay.
I mean, there's a lot of 2020 stuff out there that is, I think, because when you have everything is allocated and you're to skip a year when there's so much money behind it. And honestly, I think 90% of the people that try the wines aren't going to taste anything flawed about the wines. We tried to do one wine and one red in 2020, actually bottled it, didn't label it, but then we all sat around and tried it. And I don't think the typical consumer would have said there's something wrong with that wine, but it wasn't even that it smelled or tasted of smoke taint, but that the flavors were so muted. So it was, hey, that doesn't taste like one of our wines. It doesn't taste like the site. And so then it was like, so I don't think I don't think some people made that same decision. They're like, oh, it's totally drinkable. And we know that people want the 2020 Screaming Eagle. Did I just say that? Or Kenzo. I mean, there's things that happen out there that.
Well, there's interesting research about this all now, right? Like, Anita Oberholster at Davis has done so much stuff out, and they've been on the road. Like, Davis has been on, you know, even though I'm a Bulldog, I'm going to just say pro Davis. Like, thank you very much for the research you put out there and what you've shared with the winemaking community, because there is probably something to be said about some of us have a protein on our palate that's like picking up more of it than other people are.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
you don't want the really sensitive people on your panel, and you don't want the absolutely
Right.
not sensitive at all people on the panel. You want the people in the middle of the road, to your
Right.
point, who are going to like say, this wine's fine. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Just drink it. Tastes great. Because you don't want like the meat. Because I think I'm one of those people who is like, I taste smoke here. I taste smoke here. I taste smoke here. That's why I feel like whatever I put into the universe in 2020, like, rest assured, I've already lost all the sleep over it. Like, whatever I put out in the universe, I really don't think anybody on the
I
face
think
of the
that's
earth
a
is
common
gonna,
sentiment,
right?
Actually, thankfully, I think that's a common sentiment.
But to your point, Tyler, I remember going through that in like 10 or 11 with eight
Oh, yeah.
eight Anderson Valley Pinots where I remember trying to sell them and just the fact that they were on the list, people were like, oh, fuck that, that's a smoke taint wine. And I'm sure that same thing is probably going to happen. I've had talked to people that have been in the taste room that have said, oh yeah, we called such and such winery where we're wine club members, and they're not even offering us a discount on their 2020 wines. So I know. So that sort of attitude is out there amongst consumers. But that's why I was going to say, just trust the people that you buy wine from. And
Totally.
I mean, you're talking to people around the table right now that are like people that make good decisions based on wanting to provide good wine to the people that want their wines. And so, I mean, it's just another reason to
Know your winemaker.
know your winemaker. Not only that, know your grower.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're in the fortunate situation here where you can come in on some days and meet both of those people.
Yeah.
But at this table, you got someone who's actually out there at the vineyard and someone who's actually making the wine. And if you trust those people to make those decisions, and if they put out a 2020 wine, you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Everything's fine. And if they don't, go, oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it didn't hurt everybody's business in a really, really impactful way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're this small and you choose to say, like, I'm not making X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Well, I think Miomi might have scored in this whole
Oh shit.
version.
Oh, you're.
I mean,
You're
that
opening
Miomi,
up a
gosh.
can of worms. If
Yeah.
Dale, again, if he were here,
yeah.
ooh, he has some harsh feelings about me.
God, I
I
But
think
I'm
that's what
sure.
endeared me to
Right now.
him is that
Yeah.
I had like a TED talk about my hatred of Naomi, and I think he then was like, "Okay, I can talk to you."
Oh yeah,
totally.
He wants to burn those fuckers down, but
Do you guys want to get to this last wine?
Yeah,
before
yeah,
we-
yeah.
Let's do it.
So this
Let's
is
Before this pod's like 6 hours long.
Totally.
Is what you're saying?
You know, it's funny. We have such a high affinity. You know, I've been in radio a long, long time.
you got a beautiful radio voice.
Thank you. But it's funny because, you know, if you hold a listener in radio for 10 or 15 minutes, I mean, you're golden.
Win.
Oh, yeah. But people listen to this podcast for an hour and an hour. And, you know, our average show's at least an hour and 45 minutes. We're 2 hours and 5 minutes.
unless Jeff Cohn is on.
And then how long is it?
3 hours.
The last one I was on was 3 hours too.
I'm surprised Jeff wasn't on that one.
But it's fun. I mean, why stop? We're having a great conversation. If
Right.
everybody's got the time, it's a stunningly beautiful day. Look at the
gorgeous day.
sky.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
The temperature's perfect.
Well, we're getting this nice little breeze. As I say it, it comes up, which is great because
You
the last
summoned it.
the last
You-
couple of weeks has been a little bit rough
conquered
to
it.
sit out here, to have people sit out here. But yeah, it's beautiful. All right, so what are we
So this
drinking
is
now?
from Luke Neo and his wife Kat. Luke's the winemaker, and he started at Bedrock, which is, like we said, a great incubator
And
place.
badge of
And
honor
then
there.
he was the assistant at Green and Red, and most recently he became the winemaker at Kivelstadt.
Oh, how's Jordan doing?
I don't know.
He's got his restaurant going down
The
there. in
restaurant looks
Shelbyville, and
amazing.
Yeah, I hear.
So
good
Sam
reviews.
Kaplan, who was the winemaker there for a long time, he took a job at Ashes and Diamonds in Napa, and Luke is now moved over to Kivelstadt. So, anyway, he's awesome.
How do you
like
pronounce the
Tyler.
name of this wine?
Aw,
What's that?
How do you
Philomena.
yeah.
And
It's
Philomena is the name of his grandmother, and she's on the label, and that's her.
That's an
during-
actual photo.
Yes,
Yeah.
that Luke found in his attic,
they're like
and it's
Slamming
Sonoma
wine.
County, like on the side of the
old school
road pounding
Sonoma
wine.
side of the
Yeah.
road, and that picture is from during Prohibition, and they're drinking on the side of the road.
I was going to say,
His grandmother.
it's a great car
Epic.
too.
So epic. So Luke is somebody who I think is a better winemaker than he even knows. I think he's an excellent winemaker, and his wines are great. And you should totally have him on the pod, really. And anyway, this is his 2019 Saint Laurent, and I thought I should bring it on because we were talking about Saint Laurent, and I've worked with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And add another Saint Laurent to the mix because I want to do more Saint Laurent like tastings and like out there in the world so that people understand what it is, because the only way you understand is not by tasting one, is by tasting many. And Own Root Collective, we have featured 5 Saint Laurents in our 3 years.
I love you.
And the people who have been like members of Own Root Collective from the beginning, shout out. have tasted 5 St. Laurents, which is probably more than
They just think
most
it's-
people than most people in the world.
They're like another
If you're
goddamn
not
Saint
Austrian,
Laurent.
if you're not Austrian,
Pretty
you get red wine.
awesome.
Yeah.
So
They probably just think that Saint Laurent is widely planted.
They
They're like,
think-
oh, it must be like a
They don't
1,000-acre
because I
vineyard
educate
over
them,
there in
but,
Carneros.
And these grapes are
a
foot
lesser
stomped.
qualified member might think that.
I
but like,
I don't
just
know.
giving
on
you
that.
shit.
Said so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, stomped my foot.
Okay, yeah, he's
Definitely.
got the winemaking on the.
This
Amazing.
is partial foot stomped also.
Picked in the second
I like
week
that
of
kind of
September.
thing.
Okay, yeah. I only like hearing that from certain people. There are certain people that tell me they foot stomped, and I look at them and I'm like,
My feet are
I don't really
pedicured
want
all
you.
Time.
Okay,
They're
thank you.
All
Same.
times pedicure.
Thank you.
I'm aging prematurely because I ozone my legs. Just get in. I'm serious. Cleanliness, but also tradition.
Ozone?
Yes, ozonated water, sterilant. So, hyper-radical, all the like random stuff they sell women on about like skincare products, all the free radicals. I'm purposely throwing them on my legs so I can foot stomp wine.
That's the dedication I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I will sacrifice all of my being
Right.
for my wine. Yeah.
All right, you guys, let's talk about how to get a hold of some of these wines. So, Tara,
this
I mean,
last one's beautiful too. Wow.
tell people how they can get connected with you and
become
get
a member of Own Route Collective.
And
we
what does
sign
that
up for
mean?
The free emails. So you can do a free membership where you get emails and you can totally buy the wine. You just don't get the discounts on the shipping
Okay.
or invites to the things that we do. Or you can do a paid membership, which is $8.95 a month or $89.95 a year, and that guarantees super cheap shipping all over the whole country, and invites to tastings that we do, virtual and in person. Events, lunches at our house, whatever. Also, when people come to town, we hook them up with all of these small winemakers to taste with. And so that's super fun. And yeah, it becomes, the goal is to be creating a community. So
totally.
yeah, you can sign up for Own Route. That's a great thing to do.
I'm gonna tack on to the plug here because you and I corresponded somewhat recently, right? Because I got an order out of nowhere, and I was like, I don't know this person. I mean, they were from Jersey, and I was like, cool. I pinged my brother-in-law. I was like, is this one of your friends? Because it was sort of in the area where he lives. He's like, no, I don't know who that is. I Googled him. I was like, oh, okay. I really don't know how he got this. And then he ended up sending you a note,
Yeah.
right? Saying,
That's
'cause
right.
He found me through Own Route.
Yeah. And he bought a case from you.
He bought a case from
He'll
me.
buy more. He like
then-
sent this whole email about how he's like in love with her wines in general and Saint
It was
Laurent,
so.
and it was such a sweet
it's
email.
exactly what.
It keeps me going. Those
Well,
emails.
like to be honest with you, I mean, I make wine for myself and for other people. During harvest, I have 0 days off. I'm self-employed, so like 50, 60, 70 days, whatever it is, in a row that I work. My family doesn't see me, and I do love what I do, but also like I'm not like everybody's favorite person during harvest. And when you see someone write a note like that, it really makes it
All
worth
worthwhile.
it. 100% it does.
No.
And then also like an immense amount of gratitude for Tara Jane for like what she's doing, because
Totally.
Thanks.
those are people who would never know what the hell I'm
yeah,
doing.
that's right.
Yeah.
Doesn't because I don't have time to
Right.
hustle.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
making wine, so that I think is so powerful. What you do.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Nick.
TJ, you are awesome. Yeah, you
Stop
and
it!
you.
I'm right here.
You
We're
are
all
like.
flattering each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like just for you being the champion of like the
Absolutely.
small guy, it's like, and to just like do an absolute amazing job of doing it and like promoting your brand, because I mean, Own Route is your brand, and it's comprised of all these other little brands, and
That's
we're
right.
all like become kind of like this.
We're
Strength in numbers type
Yeah.
of thing, and like
Yep.
Yes.
you give us a voice, and
Rising tide.
yeah,
That's what it
100%.
is.
Yeah.
What's your social media? You're on Facebook. Are you on the X now?
Facebook and Instagram, and my husband runs LinkedIn for me.
Ah, good.
I don't know how to do.
No,
That's it.
LinkedIn
That's it.
is the business side.
If anybody wants to do free social media for me, I could use some help.
In trade for what?
Lots in trade for wine.
There we go. That
I
might
could
be
use
some-
some social media help. I can't do a reel to save my life. It's real frustrating.
God,
Me
it's
neither.
so rough,
Real
dude. I'm like, you've
frustrating.
seen. Brian's seen some of mine.
Oh God, it's hard.
And sometimes you get to the end of a long day of bottling or harvest, and maybe or maybe not, you've partaken of the product, and so some things seem real funny when you post
Yeah.
them.
Right.
That's right.
Uh huh.
Sometimes not. Yeah. Yeah, the dream
Then they
goal
don't
for
land.
Own Route right now would be to find a partner that wanted to open a brick and mortar in Sonoma
Oh.
and run the brick and mortar. And then, because I don't have an interest in like sitting in a place from 10 to 7 every
It just
day.
got like double looks
But
from John and Brian here.
there's not something like this in Sonoma. Like Napa has Bay Grape. Napa has, I love them. I love what they're doing. Like we have Cadet. We have places that are catering to industry and to tourists like that want to explore
Right.
this subset of people. Sonoma doesn't really have that. We have Valley over here, which
Yeah.
I love them. They're doing awesome. But like there's not a kind of an epicenter for small brands over here.
Yep.
No, now they
And-
do it in Healdsburg.
Yes,
quite
Healdsburg does,
successfully.
but Sonoma
Right.
doesn't. Sonoma town doesn't, and I can drive here faster than
Yeah.
Healdsburg because I still have to come sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the vision that I have for growing Own Route would be to be able to find somebody that wants to, really own like the brick and mortar space of it, and within that, like so retail, but then within that, be able to say to to Tyler, like, hey, you want to do a tasting and you can't do it
Right.
at your place,
For
come
sure.
and do it
Do
at our
winemaker
place.
events, grower
And
events. Yeah.
let you come and do your own personal private tastings, and then I would take a smaller percent of the wines that you sell from
Yeah.
that and handle the compliance. So, I think the model is good. I just don't have the capacity to sit in one place from 10 to 7 every day
Yeah, no
Don't
kidding.
blame you.
at all.
No.
Sorry, are you running a business and being a mom?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to
got a lot
wait for
going
them
on.
to come in. You want them to come in for a reason.
Well,
And-
that's why it's
And
fun
now,
to
is it-
schedule events and then do the events because you know
but
people
also
are
be
coming.
able to host private tastings would be
Right.
really cool. Kind of like the Blackbird model, before they sold to RH, where like somebody can come in and you can say like, okay, tell me what you like. Like I can create a cool tasting for you as
Right.
a tourist, and like then you get invested in it, in buying into not just like the Tara Jane vibe, but you get invested in the Own Route vibe, which is the whole
Yeah.
goal. Is that it's not me, it's the vibe of like I trust this brand Own Route to give me these other brands.
Yeah.
And that.
It sounds like something you could do in the afternoon at the Fairmont.
You have lots of
Brian.
time. You don't need to
bring
get
in
paid.
bring in 8 different people and
No,
do
it's
multiple
different.
tasting
Anyway,
But-
there.
that's
And-
something that's in my head is like the
Yeah.
next the next iteration.
No, I think it's
is
super
taking
cool.
it
And I,
out of the internet world and putting it into a real space where people can actually, be a community and I think that would be really special.
yeah. No, I think, John, at the Fairmont in San Francisco, they're doing something, but they're.
Well, I was talking here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they took on a model there. I think it's been 365 or something, but they give you access to like Opus and Screaming Eagle. The wines that we're drinking for me are wines that people that are, and this is true, I think, at Valley as well, and the same with their food and their wine, are people that have been in the industry
Yeah.
or people that are into adventure. That want to find something that is a little off the beaten path, but still want really high quality
Totally.
products, and that's why I love what you do, and I love what they do over at Valley as
too.
well, because I want to try these things. And anyone that's out there listening right now, you would never have heard about these 3 Rieslings that we tried
Totally.
or these Saint Laurents that we tried if you wouldn't have listened to this show. I mean, we have people that are in all 50 states in
30 countries.
across and 30
Yeah.
countries.
Wow.
That you
Amazing.
there's no way that you would have heard about this 25 cases of wine.
That's right.
So it's kind of this cool little club, and it takes someone like, I mean, you need a somm to put them together, or you need like Lyle Fast does it for
Yes.
European stuff.
God, I
to
love
where
it when
I
he
don't
does.
have time to go research all that shit, but he'll put them together in little bundles so that you can actually purchase them. Now,
We
Tara's
have a lot of fast fans.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and Tara's doing that for wines around here, and it's the coolest shit ever.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Really cool.
It's really
Yeah,
fun,
it's
and
great.
like it's really the props is to the winemakers, because like all I have to do is be a cheerleader, and like these guys do the hard work and the heavy lifting of like.
Selling yourself
It's
short,
a partner,
but-
girl.
Yeah, I know,
That's
but
a
it's-
partner.
but
I
it's-
feel
it's
that.
nice, though.
The thing we
I'm
don't
very
have
impressed
the
with
ability,
what
time,
everybody's
talent to
doing.
do.
Well,
Okay,
I don't make wine, so
Tyler, tell us if people wanted to come out here and do a tasting that is not at, and nothing wrong with these wineries I want to mention. Look, you can go to Kundi or Chateau Montelena or Benziger,
But go to Ricci.
or you can if you want. But if you want to do something that is super cool,
Authentic.
I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
both those things, down to earth, just unpretentious. We're real people doing, literally have our hands in the dirt. We're growing the fruit, and it's a labor of love. And, my dad in particular has been doing it for 40 years, and we love doing it. We're going to keep doing it. And if you want to come out and check out what we're doing, email is always the best thing. You can go to our website, riccivineyards.com. So RICCI vineyards.com, or email me, Tyler@riccivineyards.com, and we can set something up. If you go to the website, there's not really a place where you can be like, oh, I want to visit, just because we don't want to get in trouble with permitting and all that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Here's your opportunity to actually get on the property and go taste wines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Cool. What brand do you? I mean, obviously you want to sell your wines, but I mean, give a shout out to the other wines you're making too, and let people know.
Shout out. So obviously, Ottavino wines,
Which is spelled
Ottavino wines, plural.
And this means little octave?
The little octave,
yeah,
the piccolo,
Beautiful.
yeah.
the piccolo flauta. So I've been making Waitsmas for 10 years now.
And that's Waitsmas, WEIG. WAI. Okay.
hyphen MAST. So
Okay.
Jennifer
Those wines
Waits
are beautiful.
and Brian
Also,
Mast.
really, really, really
all-
elegant Pinot Noirs.
Thank you.
Really.
All Anderson Valley, Pinot Noir, and surrounding areas. So we do a little Mendocino Ridge, and Comchi is about to get its own appellation. So
Is that true?
yes.
Oh, that's so
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? Because there's only a handful of vineyards out there. But yeah, we're cool climate Pinot. I mean, about the coolest you can get in California, and making it in San Francisco. They're two San Franciscans, and yeah, they're lovely people. And then Neely in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we just opened a tasting room down there. So after gosh knows how long, we can host people on the property, and it's gorgeous. It's a 230-acre parcel of land, and we only have about 20 planted. So we actually do have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the legacy blocks. We have 2 blocks of own-rooted Chardonnay that are 40+ years old.
Nice.
A third that's the Massel selection that's grafted on rootstock. We have 3 blocks of Pinot. One is grafted on the original Gewürztraminer planting that was own-rooted.
It's so cool.
I know, it's pretty cool. And then we have our new blocks, which is really fun. We have some Wentico and Pinot. We're doing mostly stainless steel. We have Gruner Veltliner. I don't know who suggested planting them.
Yeah, right. And then Wentico Pinot and stainless steel.
Yeah,
Okay, you just need to come back.
we'll talk about that. Okay. And then I've been making wine for going into the 5th vintage with a gentleman named Xander Soren, who's an old Apple exec, but a buddy of some old clients of mine.
Is that the one where the Instagram account is in a language that I cannot understand?
Yeah. So we had the Japan launch. So his target market is he loves Japan.
And you got to go to Japan.
He's an American guy who loves Japan and loves Japanese cuisine and wanted to make a Pinot for Japanese cuisine. That's what we've been doing. We went to Tokyo in April, and stay tuned. U.S. launch is coming pretty soon. So yeah.
I mean, I want to try Pinot that's made for Japanese cuisine.
Me too.
And also eat all the Japanese cuisine.
Also,
Sure.
that's right.
I was not mad at trying out the food pairings.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, that's
What
That's
were
all
they
the
pairing
stuff
it
too.
with?
lots of stuff. So we did actually
Mainly sushi or?
a few with sushi, a few things with like wagyu, a few things with duck.
Ah.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know they cooked duck.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I there's an amazing amount of variety in Japanese cuisine, and I don't think Americans necessarily know it. But like, we did a bunch of izakaya stuff, like obviously ramen and like sushi and there's curries. I mean, there's Japanese curries, and one of the restaurants he had taken us to, amazing chef. He's bib gourmand. He's from Okinawa. His mother, I believe, is Chinese Okinawan, which is very common, and so he's doing like Chinese influenced Okinawan cuisine in Tokyo, and it was just one of the best meals I had. In fact, it was the first night that I was there, and it was the last meal when my family was there. I took them back to it. So I mean,
like
we
it?
had
Yeah.
we had some
Very
amazing
cool.
food. Amazing food. Anyway.
Well, thanks, you guys.
Dude,
Thank
this
you
has
guys.
been-
Well, what
It's
a
amazing.
pleasure. I mean, this wonderful show.
Have a
yeah.
little something to play.
Oh, Steve did not.
This is the piccolo. Can you play
We
this?
got our solo. Well, this isn't you.
Oh, but she can play it. I just thought it'd be a nice closer.
It's beautiful. I
It's a
love
nice
it.
closer.
We've opened with The Godfather. We've opened with some Bruce Springsteen for some. I mean, it's. I
I
would
just thought
love
it'd be a
it.
nice way to
Close
close.
with a piccolo.
Close
Yeah.
with a piccolo.
Absolutely.
Well done, lady. Well done.
I thought that was actually you for a second. I was like, oh, that would.
No, they are on the interwebs somewhere because I did finish my master's at some period of time. There's something on the internet.
You know, the Valley of the Moon Music Festival is doing all these classical music concerts with cellos, violins, and an old, like, 1800 piano. Piano forte is what they call it, and very early piano. And they are beautiful concerts. They're being put on right now around the city, and so look it up.
Love it.
Classical music in Sonoma. It's great.
Excellent.
It's been a music summer.
All right,
Indeed.
you guys, get on. I mean,
Thanks, man.
get on the interweb and get some of these wines sent to your house.
Yeah, drink more wine.
Yeah, we're not going
Drink
to do
more good wine. Don't drink
No
shitty
shout
wine.
outs
Drink more
for
small
us.
wine.
No shitty
Small wine.
wines.
No shitty wine. That's
Yeah.
all I really.
There's enough good wine out there. Yeah, you shouldn't.
Well, you
have
don't have to.
Yeah, go get some.
I've got the best job in the world. Brian's a som, of course. You know, Sam comes from the grower background.
Yep.
And Bart is a winemaker, and I'm the consumer. So I get to taste all the
Perfect
gig.
chair.
incredible wines in all the valleys around here.
And like we tell John, none of us have anything to do without you.
there you go.
Cheers to John. Cheers to John.
Thank you, John.
Best job I've ever had.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.